It's time for MacBreak Weekly. Andy, Renee, and Alex are here. Lots to talk about. The rumors about Apple's AR headset coming in a year. We can talk about that. The NSO group looks like they've compromised another iPhone user, at least according to Apple. A fine for Apple in Italy. Does anybody care? And a new look at the Swift Playgrounds 4. Looks pretty awesome. It's all coming up next on MacBreak Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 794, recorded Tuesday, November 30th, 2021. Canada loves you back. MacBreak Weekly is brought to you by UserWay.org. UserWay ensures your website is accessible, ADA compliant, and helps your business avoid accessibility-related lawsuits. The perfect way to showcase your brand's commitment to millions of people with disabilities. It's not only the right thing to do, it's also the law. Go to userway.org/twit for 30% off UserWay's AI-powered accessibility solution. And by Melissa. The U.S. Postal Service processes more than 98,000 address changes daily. Is your customer contact data up to date? Try Melissa's APIs in the developer portal. It's easy to log on, sign up, and start playing in the API sandbox 24/7. Get started today with 1,000 records clean for free at melissa.com/twit. And by Wealthfront. To start building your wealth and get your first $5,000 managed for free for life, go to wealthfront.com/MacBreak. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show where we cover the latest news from Apple, of which there is very little, but there's some. It's the year end. Apple has things to say. YouTube.com/Renee Ritchie brings us the Renee Ritchie Show. Hello, Renee.
The Renee Ritchie Show by Renee Ritchie, written and directed by Renee Ritchie, produced by Renee Ritchie, starring Renee Ritchie.
It's here.
It's all about me, Leo.
It's all about you. It's easy when you have no collaborators. Or you must be getting close to the point where you'd hire some help, yeah?
Well, I was thinking of maybe starting like a second series, just like based on Apple facts, where it would be much like the thing is, I know exactly in every keynote where the exact moment I need for the video is, and that it's just so fast for me to do it that it's hard to hand that off. But I'm getting closer.
Yeah. Also here, Andy Hinatko, who has zero help, even at making his Thanksgiving meal.
Many people have said I could use some help, or get help is what they've been advising me. So I don't know. I mean, I can't imagine anybody else writing part of the Renee Ritchie Show. I mean, there's one star in a Renee Ritchie production, and that's Renee Ritchie. So
it's the star of the Andy Hinatko Show. And also from officehours.global, which is an ensemble piece. So I can't say the star, but certainly the maitre d', your host.
I like to call it Chief Troublemaker.
Chief Troublemaker, Alex Lindsay. Hello, Alex.
Hello. It's good to be here.
Everybody have a good you didn't have a holiday, I know, Renee, so I'll leave you out, but you guys have a good Thanksgiving holiday?
I sous vide turkey.
Oh.
Yes,
the whole thing.
Maybe Andy did too.
Yep, 2 sous vides.
Now, I remember you said you're going to cut it up, Andy. Did you cut it up, Alex?
Yeah, I cut mine up. I cut mine up into, I fit it into 2 sous vides as well. Last year I did it in 3, but that was like a 20-pound turkey. This one I went to 17 pounds, and I found that 17-pound turkey will fit into 2 sous vides quite nicely. And so I seasoned it, threw it in there, and left it there for a couple hours. It's quite good.
Very nice. Very nice.
I just made one big mistake where so I had enough that I put aside some to sous vide later, so I bagged up 2, like so I could bag up one for Thanksgiving, another one for like a second breakfast, like second Thanksgiving on Saturday. I made the terrible mistake though of Googling for what's the FDA say about actual like how long can I store like raw turkey in the refrigerator, and I said no 1 to 2 days, but 2 days max, and I'm literally thinking, what time did I pick this up from the supermarket? Okay, I picked it up at 3 p.m. p.m. on Wednesday. Technically, I'm like 8 to 10 hours past 2 days now. Even if, because I was doing the searching like at 2 a.m. like on Saturday morning before I go to bed. I thought, well, what if instead of going to bed, I just like drop that in the sous vide? So I started cooking, and I'm only expired by like 8 hours. It can't possibly be like a danger after that. And then, unfortunately, the idea of the normalization of deviance. Have you ever heard of this concept?
Yes.
Where it's the sociological concept that says that you do something, if someone does something that's wrong enough times in a row, the deviance from normality becomes normalized, and they forget that there's a reason why this is deemed wrong, and that's the one thing that said, damn it. So am I going to be, why did I bother to search, is it safe to eat turkey that's been in the fridge for 2.5 days if I did not intend to follow the advice that I didn't want to get? Also, but the worst part would have been if I got sick anyway. For that like 2.5 days, I would have been like really, really sick, because there's nothing worse than like salmonella.
Yeah,
I would have been thinking,
I don't know.
Yeah, well, anyway, we did a search. We actually saw the advice. We said that can't possibly be true. So you got it from 2 other sources that all consistently said 1 to 2 days. You said, nope, I guess I'm going to just make a judgment call. And how did that judgment call work out? That's the worst.
Did you call the Butterball hotline, and did you record it? That's all I need to know.
My former college roommate was a epidemiologist and worked in the Oregon State Health Department.
Oh, wow.
He's tracking down food-related disease. He's passed away now, Bill Keene. He had a shelf behind him, a museum of all the
prions,
foodborne diseases that he had tracked down, E. coli in the salad, things like that. And I went to Thanksgiving with him once, and only once, and he handled the turkey even after cooking with rubber gloves. I think you can be maybe too aware. You know what I'm saying?
Well, when it's raw, it's a thing. No, Andy, I went the other direction.
Even when it was cooked, and this guy's an expert. He used to sell T-shirts that said, "How would you like your eggs?" And it was a bunch
you
of
don't dry age turkey?
Parasite eggs on the front, and you could. So this guy was an expert, and he still would not handle the turkey, even fully cooked, with his bare hands. So I feel like turkeys probably are
on the side of life.
A dance with death, but anything that doesn't kill you.
Well, they're descended from dinosaurs. They got to be dangerous.
As our friend John Salinas says, anything that doesn't try to kill you steps back and tries again, right?
Yeah.
Mutates and tries again. So anyway,
I went the other way, which is
nobody died. I'm glad everybody's fine.
I put it in there, and I just left it. So I just put all of it in on the first day, and then I just let it keep cooking. And all it does is get softer. So the next day, the only thing that happened the second day, or the second evening when I took the rest of the turkey out, was that you can't cut it anymore. You just take your fork and you push it down, and it just comes
I don't
apart.
Like to overdo poultry in sous vide. It gets mushy.
I thought it was quite nice.
You liked it?
I made some incredible gravy, which really from the
out of the turkey.
Carcass, out of the turkey.
Yeah,
exactly.
I made
was
it
liquefied,
and it was so good that you mix that all up, and it was.
I cook my poultry sous vide at longer. I mean, shorter and higher temperatures these days, because I want it to taste like it would taste if it came out of the oven instead of like a mushy bird. But it's all it's all what you're into. I'm not going to, no judgment.
We've gotten so used to 148 degrees that it's hard to go back now.
Yeah.
Like we just like every time anything more like now regularly cooked chicken, you're like, what happened?
Yeah.
What happened to you, man?
Yeah.
So I think you have to have a little bit of texture. If you can like drink it through like a large bore like macchiato straw, that's probably too far. But it does
for the record.
Kenji Alt Lopez has a very good discussion of this topic on his website.
Everything, every time,
everything. Yeah.
I just want to say that I've done extensive testing there. Well, I've done it once, and I can tell you it's 2 weeks. It'll turn into liquid by accident.
If
you go to Europe,
2 weeks,
if you put it in a sous vide,
chicken.
No, a steak.
Lord! Oh,
so I took a steak and I put it in, and it was the first sous vide. Remember the sous vide Supreme that doesn't make any noise at all, and because it doesn't circulate the same way. Anyway, and so what happened was I set it in there, and then I went to Europe. I had a job. I had a couple jobs in Europe. I came back and I looked at it, and the lights were on. I was like, oh no. I opened it up, and it was just a bag. It was a bag of like floating bits inside of liquid. I was and then I tried to think. I did try to think about what I could do with it, and I was like, I think I'm just going to throw it away.
Throw it away.
Yeah. That was really crazy. That might not have been the sous vide. That might just have been like bacteria getting the upper hand and breaking down every protein in there.
We call that decomposition. That may be the next thing. We'll have a decomp cooker that'll. No, I don't.
Exactly.
Here's Kenji's Table. Just for people who are interested, SeriousEats.com. Alex, you like it 148, which is tender and juicy for cold chicken salad. Between that and very soft and juicy served hot. But this is up to 4 hours. I'm a more like a 160 guy. I want traditional, juicy, firm, and slightly stringy served hot. That's a little hotter.
Okay.
Yeah, but you get to choose. You get to choose.
You get to choose.
And he shows you pictures.
Yeah,
he shows you everything and how much fat is left over. He also has, and maybe Andy, you could have used this, the temperature pasteurization time for poultry.
Oh God,
He only has minutes though, not days, so I don't know.
just don't use the word pasteurization because you will get every single. A tomato is not a vegetable; it's a fruit. Like, okay, technically, it would only be you could only qualify as pasteurization if blah blah blah. It's like, no, it's like, okay, I'm sorry, you caught me. Instead of saying pasteurization, 5 syllables, and moving on and making the point, I should have said, well, the FDA has a table of temperatures and cooking and hold times for that temperature that will cause the delta of pathogens within that substance to reduce to below a level that would cause people to get sick and or die. Of course, there is a level of beyond pasteurization it's like, please just.
And this is why you should never invite a sous vide to Thanksgiving. I'm just saying. Just leave him out. Or an epidemiologist, for that matter.
All I'm saying is that a sous vide will definitely win, or be in the top percentile for Instagram pics of their Thanksgiving turkey.
That's a good point.
It's not good. That's a good point. Because what we're always doing is it's not just it can't just be like the light on our phone. We have to have the external light on the side.
Light.
So they have to see how glistening moist the meat is. That's
light.
not dry and stringy. Yeah.
All right, enough.
It's all we have. It's all we have.
We're leaving poor
this.
Renee Ritchie out.
I just want to let you know. I just want to. I ordered rotisserie chicken from Côte St. Luc
Good man.
barbecue with poutine just to celebrate with the rest.
Good man, perfect. Exactly what you should be eating. That's very good. I'm glad we had this conversation. That's used up 10 minutes.
Can we
only have another hour to go, and we can call
this
it a
week
day.
in mac and cheese. Yeah.
Before we get off, Renee, can I praise you and all of your countrymen for that amazing video that you guys made for Ryan Reynolds on giving him that national award? That is one of the best, greatest things I have seen in 2021, and it made me want to say, why can't we as Americans be half as cool as the brain trust that made that video?
The Canadian Arts
The Bare Naked Ladies are Canadian
Award.
We have all the advantages.
Yeah. So it brought Ryan to tears, as I remember.
Well, he had a Shatner cameo.
Yeah.
Yes. Didn't let him talk, which shows just how smart the Canadians are.
So shall we watch the video? I guess we're kind of compelled to.
I mean,
ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to show all 5 minutes, but a tribute.
Said Bryan Adams was busy. Nickelback all had to work. They meant to call Drake, but called me by mistake. So you're stuck with a song by this jerk.
Who is that, by the way?
That's one of the singers for Bare Naked Ladies.
Bare Naked, that's what I thought. Yeah, I recognized his voice. Also Canadian. Is he wearing his medal?
Ryan is, yeah. Governor General's award.
Canada loves you back. Canada loves you back.
He's playing an axe. Air guitar on the axe.
And he's wearing quality flannel.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, waterfall, forest. They got a horn section. He's actually tearing up. Oh, there's Shatner, another Canadian.
You're almost as juicy as Bruno Gerussi and much better known in Quebec. Oh, of all the Canadian Ryans, you've got to be in our top 3. We'll drink American gin when you're tea.
Aviation, his gin, of course.
Everyone you're from BC, 'cause Canada's got your back.
Some hockey players that are, of course, very well known in
It's Ryan Knight in
north
Canada.
of the 49th parallel.
Canada's got your back. Canada's own superhero.
All the charities that he supports. Food Banks Canada.
On screen. You shine a spotlight on the people who might
You know what? He
not
deserves
otherwise
this.
get to
That's
be
great.
seen.
Yeah. It's just a very sweet video.
Of course, we would love to take credit.
It's like it makes
It's very Canadian.
It's
I'd
very
like to think of-
Canadian.
When I saw the slogan "Canada loves you back," I thought, "Oh, is this their new tourism video?" Because that works.
Oh man, it makes me want to go to Canada. Yeah. As soon as they let me in.
Oh, you can come in, Leo. We're open now.
Polar bear. No. Grizzly bear. White bear. I don't know what kind it is.
Polar bear.
How about something endemic? Or something sweet out of sing? He helped us all through the pandemic. So what you waiting for? Let those church bells ring.
Wow.
Gorgeous
Thank you,
shot.
Ryan. From all the Canadians.
Canadian Provincial Marketers Association, Food Banks Canada,
All of
Society.
actually, these
All
are all
people he's
foundations he supports, right? That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he has a hospital and a Vin Diesel joke on the rock. The man can do no wrong.
Yeah, that's pretty
Yes.
cool.
All I can,
He's splitting wood.
all I
Not,
can say
not
is that-
splitting wood, apparently, with his axe.
Playing air guitar.
all I can say is
Again.
he's playing the game of life pretty well.
Yeah, no kidding.
He's doing a pretty good job. That's
Yeah,
all I'm
no
saying.
kidding.
Anyone
He
who
and
can
Keanu
inspire
Reeves.
this?
Full money.
Wow. Wow. Okay, now we've used 14 minutes.
There you go.
We're doing a great
But they're a
job.
good
Thank you
14
very
minutes.
much.
They're a good 14
It was a
minutes.
hell of a good 14 minutes.
Yeah.
He received
hey,
the Canadian Arts Award. Yes, the Governor General's Award.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Apropos of nothing, do you know that The Great Gatsby went into the public domain in 2021? I can't remember what the first line is, but let's just read the entire thing. while we wait, like the end of
all I
the
can say
year,
is
the period where all these
filibusters.
companies are like, yeah,
The Great Gatsby
have to
is the
keep
reason that
standing.
I don't read fiction anymore.
It
I read
turned
that
you
and I
off
was
in
like,
high school, and that was it.
yeah, I was
right?
like, I read this and I was like, this is so
Never
bad.
again.
I'm never going to read it
Never
again.
again.
Like I never did. I never read another fiction book again.
And
was
that is our Philistine, Alex Lindsay. Now, let us cover some Apple news.
okay.
Ta-da!
There was some very big news in podcast awarding and music awarding today, Leo.
Yeah, Apple gave away its 2021 Best of 21 for music and for podcasts. Apple celebrates this year's best and most popular podcasts. One is objective, one is subjective, but we'll go with that.
And Joe Rogan is nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
Spotify land.
Yeah, interesting, isn't it? It obviously Apple only knows downloads on it. Actually, it didn't even used to know downloads on its own platform. I guess it would if you downloaded it with Apple Podcasts or iTunes. They might collect that data. Apple Podcasts is pleased to recognize a slight change of plans with Maya Shankar from Pushkin Industries as the best show of the year.
I didn't even know what it was.
And anything for Selena with Maria Garcia from WBUR and Futura Studios as Newcomer of the Year. Very, very good. Congratulations.
This to me is like one of the things is like podcasts were very tech oriented in the beginning because it was only techie people who knew what RSS was. And now they're mainstream and there's shows like about knitting, shows about like knitting specific yarns in a specific suburb of Boston.
Well, that's
and, like,
good.
We're never
That's
going
the
to
niche.
get that little tight bubble. But
Yeah, that's the niche. And I love that. Best show of the year.
they're
There
not
you
ours
go.
anymore.
There's Maya
They belong to
Shankar.
everybody.
Yeah.
But that's the ideal, and that's why I really like it when the people who are given these awards. I mean, it doesn't mean anything to somebody who already has a huge audience.
It means something. It
who's
generates
successful.
downloads for sure. I'm sure all of these shows will be downloaded.
That's what I meant for if let's say the most popular podcast in the world that everybody's heard of and the host has been like on the Tonight Show once or twice, what is gained by giving that person that kind of a spotlight, whereas another podcast that is just as good in so many ways help that group like lift them up by giving them recognition that way. It's like we don't need a way to say, well, I bet that we can get this person to do a video for us if we honor them and say that, wow, that podcast that's making you $8.2 million per year in sponsorships alone. I'm not saying that this should all be about marketing and all be about promoting podcasts that aren't getting a big enough audience, but it always makes you good when these sort of things direct your attention to a podcast or app of the year or any one of these categories where I had no idea this thing exists, but I sampled it, and my God, this is one of the greatest things I've ever seen. Thank you for calling this to my attention.
Yeah, that's good. So I, by the way, did not bother even to look at this list to see if anybody I know is on it. So, I mean, maybe somebody is. Let's see. In addition to Best Show of the Year and Newcomer of the Year, Apple recognizes a curated collection of shows and episodes that defined and reflected 2021. Well, I know I'm not on a list that defined and reflected 2021. Let's see. Kids book about the podcast. Oh, I see. It's about other things, but it's a podcast. Anything Goes with Emma Chamberlain. Good Inside with Dr. Becky. I can go on and on. I don't think I will. Let's see. Anything you guys recognize? Jared Fried. No, somebody else. Okay. Episodes of the year. Oh, they even break it down to episodes. So
I just had to make sure Logan Paul wasn't there, and then that was fine. Just did a quick scan.
I can't wait to listen to this.
Didn't see that name.
Glorious Bastards, about a chance encounter with Paul Rudd at a movie theater that causes a formerly devout Jehovah's Witness to rethink her future and embark on a new life. Maybe. I'm sorry. I won't snark.
No,
You can snark. We have so many minutes to kill, Leo.
Apple also published new charts today highlighting the most popular new shows, free channels, and individual shows and channels with subscriptions that launched this year in the U.S. This is something I like to mention this once in a while because people always say, why aren't you guys on the charts anymore? Because you have to be new. Charts are very much about...
They're acceleration based, right?
Yeah, it's like the Billboard charts. Same reason, the Beatles aren't on the #1 on the Billboard charts. They may be, somebody or whoever, Prince might be best selling, but it's not new, so it doesn't count. Top new shows we could do: Hard Things with Glennon Doyle. Top free channels: Audio Chuck. Then the New York Times. The New York Times must really be pissed. iHeart gets beat by New York Times, and the New York Times gets beat by Audio Chuck. Okay, then Dateline, Barstool.
I don't even know what
ABC.
Audio Chuck is.
I don't know. See, I'm telling you, this is good for you.
Evidently.
Yeah.
See, this is good for them.
Top subscriptions: Bad Blood, The Final Chapter with John Carreyrou. #1 channels,
Fresh
top
Air.
channels.
Fresh Air hidden in
Fresh
there.
Air, I've heard of that.
Terry Gross.
Yeah, there you
I've heard
go.
of that show.
#4 on the top subscriptions individual shows. And that isn't a new show, so, there you go. That's new subscriptions this year. Planet Money also
Some of these are
on
big
there.
media shows.
Almost all is big media, although some not. Wondery, Luminary, Sword and Scale. Is that like Sword and Laser? Did they change their name? Or it's just somebody copied them? Tenderfoot TV, Q-Code, Pushkin, Imperative, Radiotopia, Realm, and The Atlantic. So there you go. Thank you, Apple, for really helping podcasts by promoting all the underdogs. And then let's do music. Music 2, the 3rd Annual Music Awards. And this will give you, I think, some idea of how important these awards are.
I thought you were going to say how hip all of us are.
How hip all of us are. Let's see. The winners are Global Artist of the Year, The Weeknd. I'm just going to not say anything. Breakthrough Artist of the Year, Album of the Year, and Song of the Year, all going to Olivia Rodrigo for her amazing song Driver's License. Okay.
She's a Disney product, isn't she?
Actually, I'm pleased to see H.E.R. as Songwriter of the Year. That's good.
I gotta say I've done a little work with her and wow, what a force of nature.
Yeah.
that is like,
how old is she?
Holy smokes. Every once I don't know, but
She's a kid.
wow, is she talented. She's talented, disciplined, focused, she's got that, like every once in a while you see an artist go by. Like I've worked with a lot of artists, and every once in a while you see one go by that has everything, like all the pieces in one place, and she's definitely one of those. Yeah.
We should look at the award. You get a silicon wafer. Framed. A framed silicon wafer.
Is that the biggest M1 Max chip that they ever
I
made?
wonder what these are all
Exactly.
obviously
It's
rejects.
really fast.
These are all
I bet you that was like a
rejects.
super fast one. Look at all those processors.
The
I mean,
Weeknd
you
is
just
the
plug it
biggest-
in.
The bin M1 Max.
I think they promised the Weeknd something better because he doesn't seem too
I think
thrilled.
Qualcomm is going to offer each one of these people like $10 million for their wafer, just in case there's something on there, an early development edition of like a modem chip or something they could check out.
But put him on that Hawaii junket, Andy. They don't have to give him anything else.
What are the
It's better
chances this is a photoshopped image?
I don't know.
Okay.
They're holding like a blank, and they'll figure out the award later.
Yeah,
like,
they're
like
holding a
finger
piece of
copy.
paper in their living room, and it's turned into the.
I'd be surprised if they were. Yeah, I think that's probably there. The background may not be.
Well, definitely the
but I think
background's
They have a
not.
background that's
foreground, I
color
think is- I think
coordinated
they're
with
holding it.
everything.
You think they're
The
holding
outfit
it,
and the-
or
Yeah, I
a
think
piece
they're
of? They
holding
sent him a piece of
Okay,
wood.
yeah.
Either that, or they're
Right.
still being held at this facility. It's international on this
Those
right
are.
away.
This is what happened to those anechoic chambers they built for the HomePod. Yeah.
It's now a rendition site. Black Ops.
Artist of the Year, Africa, WizKid. Artist of the Year, France. Oh, they have. Oh my God, I'm not going to go through
That's
all
cool.
the countries. Yeah, it's nice that they give credit to the countries.
It's nice because a lot of times that gets
Did
kind of
Ryan
overlooked.
Reynolds one for
They
Canada?
did not fly all these people into the secret chambers underneath the campus to do these pictures.
Leo, you have to go. I need to know if Ryan Reynolds won for Canada.
He should win. He should win for Canada. Okay, here's what it is. Each award features Apple's custom silicon wafer suspended between a polished sheet of glass and a machine and anodized aluminum body. The result of this multi-month process before it is sliced into hundreds of individual chips is stunning and distinctive. Please do not. I bet. You think there's in the contract it says, and you may not slice them up to make your own M1
You may not
Max.
give this to Intel.
I don't know, but I think we know exactly what when Johnny Ive left the company and mentioned that while we'll still be involved in certain specific projects within Apple. I think we just saw one of Johnny
This
Ive's
is it.
projects.
Yeah, it's actually beautiful.
I'm surprised
It
this
has
hasn't been
to be-
sold as the new MacBook, like no screen, no keyboard, no connectors, but oh my God, the aluminium. Tell me
It
more
has to
about the
be
bevels.
inevitable, Andy. It has to be just completely
had to be.
inevitable.
And courageous too.
I note that the
Phil.
podcasters did not get these awards, by the way.
No.
They didn't get squat.
They're not pretty enough to get the
Yeah,
photos.
they
no,
of the
got
press
they got the
release.
no
buffet.
pictures of the podcasters
They got
at
the
all.
buffet table.
Remember when Drake got like early on on Apple Music? They had to create an award for the first creator to get more than over 1 billion streams on Apple Music. So they basically created a piece of artwork, framed it, and then showed up backstage at a Drake concert. I mean, Tim Cook, like the entire team, to get a picture with them, because that was the value of we have to have some sort of an eye-grabbing number that's going to show people exactly how popular an artist is on our platform, and that the fact that our platform is now big enough that you can actually have 1 billion views here. There's a lot of that going on here.
Okay. We've made it through 25 minutes.
That's it, folks.
now.
Thanks so much.
No, let me do an ad and then we'll come back with actual news. There is real news. Great to have you here, MacBreak Weekly. Last episode of November. Can you believe that? December starts
go?
tomorrow. Where did it go? Yep. We're wrapping up 2021. We hardly knew ye. We will do a best of episode at the end of the year, as we always do. For MacBreak Weekly, and then maybe the first episode of the new year we'll talk about what's ahead, because I think it's going to be a very big 2023.
It's going to be a busy year.
Or 2022. What year is this?
Yeah.
It's going to be a big
Doesn't matter
2022.
anymore, Leo.
I know.
Don't skip
2020
it.
junior.
We need all the
junior.
years we can get, Leo. Don't skip
just
one.
I don't know. If it's anything like 1 and 2, 3 could be really a bummer. All right, let's talk about our sponsor, UserWay.org. Now, this is somebody I can really get behind. They are a company that helps other companies make their websites accessible. 60 million Americans with disabilities have a right, to look at your website, to use your website, to buy stuff from you. Why wouldn't you want to do that? Although it actually had to go to the Supreme Court. This is mandated by the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act. Any public entity has to be accessible. The Supreme Court ruled that any website that's open to the public is a public entity. Fortunately, there are rules, WCAG, the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, that tell you what you need to be accessible. Every browser has this capability, by the way. It's an accessibility layer that is generated by invisible commands on the website. UserWay's incredible AI-powered solution tirelessly enforces these WCAG guidelines with one line of JavaScript. UserWay can achieve more than an entire team of developers by making your website accessible. And I know that can be overwhelming, but it's nice to know there's an easy way to do it. Easy and cost-effective, by the way, very affordable. And if you're just at all curious, are you compliant? Are you liable? Check out their free scanning tool to see if your website's ADA compliant. That's what 1 million websites have done. They've gone to UserWay, and they've turned on their AI and machine learning solutions. Coca-Cola uses UserWay, Disney, eBay, FedEx, and now you can use it too at a very affordable price for small and medium businesses. Operating a compliant, accessible website just makes business sense. Millions of people need UserWay to purchase your products, and when you scale, you need UserWay. It scales right there with you. Let me give you examples. So we all know, I mean, the first obvious one is alt tags on images. You don't want an image to be just a blank space for somebody using a screen reader. So you put in alt tags. That's a lot of work if you have a lot of images. UserWay's AI actually does image recognition on all the images, fills in alt tags. You can add to it, of course. They give you a very easy way to interact with the change, but it gives you something which is better than nothing. It does even more. One of the big problems, and I hear this all the time from blind listeners, is the nav menus on a lot of sites. They're just not navigable. It fixes that. It ensures all the pop-ups are accessible. It makes your shopping cart accessible. That's something you want, right? Form fill-out accessible. Fixes vague link violations, fixes broken links. Make sure all your colors are accessible without changing your colors, but it can adjust the illuminance to get it easier to read for screen readers and people with vision problems. UserWay is completely platform agnostic, by the way. It works everywhere. WordPress, Shopify, Wix. It's easy to add UserWay, AEM, Sitecore, SharePoint, even a hand-coded site. It's just a line of JavaScript. UserWay integrates seamlessly no matter what you're using, and it lets your business meet its compliance goals, improves the experience for users, and potentially keeps you out of court, which, you know, I don't want to emphasize that because you're doing it for the right reasons, but it's something to be aware of. Just listen to Susan Bennett, the voice of Siri. Here she's going to tell you what she thinks of UserWay.
Hi, I'm Susan Bennett, the original voice of Siri. You won't hear me say something like this too often. I'm sorry, I don't understand what you're looking for. But every day, that's what the internet is like for millions of people with disabilities. UserWay fixes all of that with just one line of code.
One line of code can make any website fully accessible and ADA compliant. With UserWay, everyone who visits your site can browse seamlessly, customize it to fit their needs, showcase your brand's commitment to millions of people with disabilities. This is the right thing to do, and it's easy. And it's very affordable. In fact, if you go to userway.org/twit, you'll save 30% off UserWay's AI-powered accessibility solution. We spend less... let me put it this way. We spend more on fonts for our website than we do on UserWay. UserWay, making the internet accessible for everyone. Visit userway.org/twit today. It's really the right thing to do and an easy thing to do and the good thing to do. Apple has alerted a Polish prosecutor that her iPhone has been hacked. At least this is the Polish tweet. But here's the text translated. State-sponsored attackers may be targeting your iPhone. Apple believes you do not want to get this from Apple ever. It's from threat-notifications@apple.com. Apple believes you're being targeted by state-sponsored attackers who are trying to remotely compromise you with the iPhone associated with your Apple ID. These attackers are likely targeting you individually because of who you are or what you do. If your device is compromised by a state-sponsored attacker, and it goes on to talk about the potential access they'll have. While it's possible this is a false alarm, please take this warning seriously. We see these from Google as well, right?
This could really become a Watergate situation for a lot of countries. Like Apple is just what they're doing is that, I mean, yeah, they're warning people, but they're also publicly shaming the companies that they're publicly shaming somebody.
Yeah, and I believe it's Pegasus, which means it's the NSO group. But
I'm saying everybody who's got NSO licenses who've been using it the way they shouldn't, it's kind of like someone going, "Hey, we're going to go through your search history now and publish it to Twitter." You know, so I think that Apple is this could get pretty ugly for a lot of countries. It won't be for ours because we have our own tools to do that. But it could be. I bet you anything. I wouldn't be surprised at all if we buy exploits. I don't think you might have tools, but those exploits are pretty valuable, pretty tightly held. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe we have our own exploits. I don't. How many exploits do you think there are?
We do. That's why we don't license NSO. Like, one of the reasons that they do business here is that a lot of the Five Eyes countries have plenty of their own.
We don't need you. We don't need yours. So anyway, this is and this is part, of course, Apple's suing the NSO group, as we talked about last week, because this is how the only, I guess, foothold they have. The NSO group, in order to infect these phones, sends you a text message, and the text message to do that is a violation of the terms of services of Apple's messages. So that's where Apple's getting them. Terms of
They
service.
were setting up fake accounts by the dozens to make these messages.
And again, the discovery for this is going to be ugly, and so I think that the thing is, Apple's made it clear, especially with these little announcements, that I think that what they're really after is they want to know everybody who is involved and who they were connected to. And there's going to be a whole lot of mud because that does so much damage to NSO. Doesn't matter whether they win or lose the case. I mean, Apple will win most likely, but it doesn't matter whether they win or lose. No one's going to want to touch. I mean, anybody with any brains is not going to want to touch NSO again, because if all your dirty laundry of who you were following when you shouldn't all gets put out, in public, it's going to be, there's going to be a lot of people that are upset. It's going to be real problematic.
We don't know what the FBI used to hack that San Bernardino terrorist's phone.
It's just disclosed. They bought it from somebody.
It's from
it was a
Celebrate,
really weird thing.
right?
Yeah, because I guess NSA wouldn't help. NSA refused to help them.
Yeah.
So they went and purchased it on the
Okay.
open.
So the NSA. So this is the other problem. I mean, we may have tools, but they're not equally distributed. Is that it? Among the intelligence community.
Also, some United States agencies don't have the legal authority to.
NSA can't do it against U.S. citizens, right? Only the FBI.
Which is why, as I'm sure Alex is about to point out, you ask your friends and your partners in the group, say, "Hi, foreign state that we exchange intelligence with, could you eavesdrop on our citizens on the specific, and then tell us what you found out?"
The NSA could share the exploit, however. There's nothing against that. Then the FBI would use it against.
Yeah, but then they
burn the exploit. They're not going to burn it on.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
NSA is like NSA probably knew long ahead of time. There's nothing in San Bernardino that we need, and there's no reason for us to give it to them. There's all we're going to do is give up our exploit, and they're not going to use it on one person when they're using it on thousands effectively. Why do that?
Yeah.
Also, in principle, the reason why most government conspiracy theories fall apart is that it presumes that the government is one entity that is all can be focused on one goal, as opposed to two different agencies. That why on earth would we help this other agency out? We hate those people. We will, even if we're ordered to, we're going to try not to, just on principle, and that is like the literal truth.
9 to 5 Mac says at least five Thai activists and researchers have also received this notice from Apple.
Yeah.
Google does the same thing. I don't know. That's as they should. As they should.
It could be super disruptive though, because this particular notice was the if you read through to the actual Polish coverage of this, there is reason to believe that it could be her own government that is trying to spy on her, because she's a prosecutor that's been sort of nosing around in areas in which if the things that she's investigating turn out to be true, it would be very, very efficient for her to basically find out what she knows, make sure that they can head off anything that's going to happen within her prosecutorial purview. And you think about how disruptive that can be when you basically are not just, it's one thing when you're saying that, oh, by the way, this one country is doing cyber attacks on this other country. It's another thing when it actually reveals, no, there is political infighting such that you are targeting people who are investigating an authority that's supposed to be policing itself.
I can't speak for the U.S., but I think in most cases, that's exactly how it happens. It was the Thai government spying on Thai activists. It's Bahrain spying on Bahrain activists. It's almost always your own government, because you are a threat, right?
This is interesting. This is a little bit more interesting because it really is someone who already has political authority. It's not someone outside of the political structure. That is kind of interesting. If let's say there were a sitting U.S. president who didn't have any idea that he had any control limits on his personal authority and used his authority to pursue lots and lots of grudges, and there was proof that no, you actually had surveillance directed against your political enemies to find dirt against them that you can then use to basically negate their ability to challenge you on anything. In a more enlightened society, this would be a huge, huge problem.
Yeah.
Well, luckily, they alienated the intelligence community, so we didn't get to see the full thing play.
Well, and this is exactly why we talk about it, why Apple's upset about it, whether they're making, I don't know if Apple's really upset about it, but this really threatens all of us. And
Yvonne's language did not sound happy. And he's like, a lot of the Apple executives, again, they're really plain spoken. What they sound like on the stage is exactly what they sound like when you meet them, like I
know it's just paranoid of me to assume there's some sort of government back channel with these companies. And
though I've had a chance to talk to a lot of security people at Apple, Google, and Facebook. And one of the things that Apple does not like Google and Facebook. Google does not like Facebook and the NSA. Like they all have the favorites and their least favorites. All of them hate the idea of these people getting into their systems, like with a seething, loaded passion. Good. They hate it.
Good. I hope that's true. I mean, I know, here's the paranoid in me. They know it's a bad look to be doing it, but at the same time, I would imagine that they get approached all the time by, government agents. So obviously they're going to do whatever they can to look like they're going to be against it.
I think Apple's drawn a pretty strong line of where Apple's drawn a pretty strong line of we'll let you into the cloud, we just won't let you into the phone.
Right.
And I think that their whole business model is around not allowing people into the phone. And so I don't think that they would ever knowingly give it up to the government.
Don't be paranoid, Leo.
Well, I'm just saying that
no, be paranoid.
Their entire business model.
Just don't be alert.
Paranoid is always
be alert, not anxious.
Just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not all out to get you.
But Renee raises a really good point. There is such a thing as a common enemy that goes from a fundamental dogmatic reaction to what this enemy does to essentially trust. If your job is to maintain security, it's not just the people that are trying to undermine the technical underpinnings of the security of the device and the operating system. It's also the people that are trying to destroy the trust in that security. And that is something that really gets people on a Clint Eastwood vigilante style attack against these people. Google and I would wager that one of the largest areas of collaboration between Google and Apple is in security. Maybe not necessarily in an official sense, but these people talk to each other at conferences. They talk to each other basically through whatever means that people in this business talk to each other, and they are very, very, very eager in putting the hurt on people who are trying to destroy security and trust in these platforms they spend a million lifetimes collectively trying to support.
And one thing that I just want to make sure we separate is that we have there's a lot of rogue actors that are using NSO group to do all of these things. And then there are some that are following actual terrorists. And our own government, while we want to be protective of our privacy and security, we have to understand that the people that are trying to do this stuff are doing it under very valid reasons, for very valid reasons where they can, because there is true threats, that they are sorting out from terrorist organizations. So we don't want to wipe everything over with the same brush, because there are people who are using these tools to do horrible things. And so we just have to remember that
give them metadata,
that's
Alex.
part of it.
We just give them the metadata and keep them off the phone too. That's the big deal that apparently Facebook and Google and Apple have all made. It's like you can't have the data, go crazy with the metadata.
Right. And that's all very true.
Super valuable.
That's all very true. One of the difficulties is that no one who wants to roll back security protections on personal devices will ever say, we just want to create a situation in which nobody can possibly have a secret from the government. They will always say terrorism. They will always say child abuse. They will always say human trafficking. And these are all valid things that are facilitated when law enforcement agencies have proper legal court authorized access to a device. However, we always have to make, at the same time, in the same conversation, we have to say we are not going to put back doors into things. We are not going to essentially establish the right to access every device. Yeah.
I completely agree with you. I completely agree that it's important.
I'm just adding the conversation, not correcting you. Yeah.
Yeah, because I completely agree with that. I just also want to say that we don't want to demonize the folks that are doing work pretty hard every day to make sure that we can have houses that don't have walls and people with AK-47s on every corner. And I work in countries like that, and so the thing is that we have it pretty good here, and we have it pretty good partially because of those agencies that really went in for valid reasons. But I still think that we should keep the phone as a kind of a sacred place, in my opinion.
See, this is part of the conversations I have with myself in my head. Oftentimes, a lot of the most complicated things come down to just my belief and my personal opinion of what is fair play, what is not fair play. To me, the idea that, well, if Apple has a bug in their system that can be exploited to give people Wonderland access to the phone, it's Apple's responsibility to lock that stuff down and discover it. If governments who have an interest in finding those exploits find them, that's fair game. That's okay. I might not necessarily approve of how they're using it in every single instance, but you can't. We always have to make sure we make that line between a government insisting that the devices remain weak and governments that are simply smart enough to realize that there's probably a problem here somewhere. Everything that's based on Linux is based somewhat on at least one piece of open source code that's being maintained by a single volunteer who wrote this code in 1998, and that doesn't have enough time to really keep an eye on it. And so we bet that if we jiggle enough doorknobs inside the system, we'll find a way to get in.
Google and Apple both fined 10 million euros each by Italy's Competition and Market Authority, saying the companies don't provide their users with clear enough information on commercial uses of the data, and that violates Italy's consumer code. The regulator also accuses Apple and Google of deploying aggressive practices to push users to accept this commercial processing. Both Apple and Google will appeal. It's not a lot of money.
But they want to demonstrate that if there's a law they don't necessarily agree with that restricts their trade, they're going to, on principle, want to swat that down and to demonstrate that this is not something that you can possibly enforce. Go back and fix it, or just come back with more money.
The Italy Competition Authority accuses Apple of failing to immediately provide users with clear information on how it uses their information commercially, I guess for ad purposes, when they create an Apple ID or access the digital stores such as the App Store. Do you think that's fair?
I don't know enough about it. Okay, I read through the article and I just couldn't quite. I mean, I was like, I don't understand what it's Italy.
Yeah.
If you worked in Italy, you're like,
well,
okay.
Should there maybe be, when you sign up for an Apple account, oh, and by the way, a disclaimer, we use information you provide us to sell advertising on the App Store? Because they do, right?
It's probably buried in the EULA, isn't it?
Buried in the EULA may not be exactly what the Italian regulators want.
Sure. Yeah.
Fair? Is that fair? I think it's not unfair. Do we all agree Apple is using that information when they sell ads in the App Store? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. We know that.
Are they
right?
using the information that you're putting in for Apple ID, or are they using information from your interaction with the App Store? And I don't actually know that.
But they're using information. They collect around your Apple ID from your activities. Let's put it that way. Once you create an Apple ID, you are in effect setting up an account that they can monitor for your activities. Yes? Mm-hmm. That's fair, right?
Like part of the reason why I just think like Apple just shouldn't. Again, it's easy for me to say because I love spending Tim Cook's money. It's one of my favorite things. But Apple should not be involved in advertising, especially like with the stances that they've taken in regards to how Google and Facebook operate and in terms of privacy. And just everything that's getting thrown back in their faces as a result of either people making mistakes about what is first party versus third party because it is legit confusing, but also because Apple is like, they're putting these ads up in the App Store and they're putting ads up in other places like news. There was a controversy this week because people are upset again that you pay for News Plus and they show you ads in the service that you pay for. It's like, it's so little money for Apple. And I know that's, again, I'm spending it's so little money.
That's another place Apple sells ads, right? News Plus, right?
News Plus, the App Store, and there's one other place, Stocks App, I think, is the third place. And it's not worth it for like the apparent hypocrisy of it all.
I think the thing that bothers me the most about the news app is that I tell Apple I don't want to see somebody, like I don't want to see this news. And then they keep on putting a hole in there. They're going, you could watch this if you weren't blocking it.
No, because I am blocking it.
I don't even want to know. I am blocking it. I don't want to know that it exists. I don't want this thing in my feed.
At least you can block it.
I'm just like,
you should hear Paul Thurrott's complaints about Microsoft News, which is constantly feeding him information he really doesn't want to know. He's trying to turn it off. He doesn't care. All of a sudden, there's celebrity interviews and bikini pictures, and he says, I don't want that.
I remember Steve Jobs famously had an idea for an Apple operating system that was run off advertising. They never productized it, but there's like a patent and everything that says like, show an ad, how annoying is it? Turn off the ad for 13 seconds. Like the whole, it's just, I'm not gonna say it's un-Apple, but it's against, it feels like it runs afoul of the moral stance that they've taken with regard to privacy.
Yeah.
Feels like exactly like that. Like maybe it is.
It's an unforced error.
Unforced error.
That's exactly. That's a great way of putting it. Oftentimes, it's not so much that Apple's doing something that I think is unethical, or that even the average person would think is unethical. It's that Yeah, but you don't get to say that we are pure as the white as snow in Antarctica, and say that, oh, and by the way, we don't actually publicize this, but we're actually doing some of what the things we're complaining other people about, or we decide that we have established that this is an important principle that we will die on this hill for, but we will make an exception for this case, and this other case. So it's not that they're being hypocrites; it's that they're being a large company, and their messaging really has to be so in italics with that asterisks in it every time that they try to establish a superiority.
Give them the benefit of the doubt, and maybe they got this idea that they can provide. We can be the first ones to provide actual private advertising. It's still not worth it. Like it's one of those things where it's like it can be a beautiful engineering solution that just comes off entirely the wrong way when exposed to humans.
I always feel like it's when I see Apple do something like this, where it's normal for everybody else, but you wouldn't expect it from Apple. I always feel like that shot from Armageddon where he goes, "So what's your backup plan?" And he goes, we don't have a backup plan. He's like, "You're NASA, man. You got people back there thinking things up, and other people backing them up." And he goes, "This is the best you can do." So that's I think it's the standard that we hold to.
Look, pure and simple, it is hypocrisy, and this is why when Apple says, "Oh no, we protect our users in these other matters," I'm slightly skeptical. So this is why you don't want to be a hypocrite, because then nobody trusts you in other areas.
Well, it's like what's the right word for it? It's because like they're like, we're going to block all third-party advertising. People say, well, you're doing this, and they're like, aha, but this is first-party advertising. Yeah, and it's true. They don't block first-party advertising on Facebook. None of their policies, not app tracking transparency, not private relay, none of the stuff is ever targeted at first-party advertising. But ask a person what the difference is. Like in the real world,
advertising's advertising. They don't care. And in fact, that's what perfect knowledge on their platform. Google's doing the same thing with that little, shell game about third party versus first party. Here's Apple's. By the way, this is the second fine in 2 weeks from Italy. They also fined them, as you remember, last week over colluding with Amazon. Apple said, "We believe the authorities' view is wrong, and will be appealing the decision." Apple. You see, I think this is a really good example of Apple not responding to the accusation. Apple has a long-standing commitment to the privacy of our users, and we work incredibly hard to design products and features that protect customer data from third parties. We provide industry-leading transparency and control to all users so they can choose what information to share or not and how it is used. Can you turn off data collection for Apple's advertising?
Yeah, it's in the settings under privacy, and then there's like an ad section.
Okay, so you can say that's fair. So they do provide control to users to choose what information they share or not. Is that right?
Yeah, well, you can just choose not to share it, and then you get the generic ads instead of the ads based on your whatever targeted ad.
Really does seem silly for Apple. How much money could they make on those ads? And how much do they need that money? It seems silly for Apple to do that. All right, so you think Apple's response is reasonable. Long-standing commitment to the privacy of our users. We work incredibly hard to design products and features that protect customer data. That isn't really responsive. I do think that it is. The second sentence is important. We provide industry-leading transparency and control. The Italians say you're not quite as transparent as we'd like you to be. We'd like you to say this when you sign up.
I'd be curious like what they've started with Apple and Google, but it feels like everybody's breaking this rule.
What if Apple did the same thing for their ads that they do for everybody else? And had a little they do it, but you have to go get it. What if they pushed you a little thing when you sign up for an Apple account or first use a phone, pushed it and says, "Do you want us to track you or not?" You know what the answer would be, no.
Yeah, their argument is that that's first party, that nobody does that kind of response for first party stuff. But again, like this whole thing goes into like, what does it actually mean for the consumer? Some of the EU stuff is like borderline ridiculous. Like they have a bill passing to say that YouTube can't use privately available information to recommend videos to you. Can only use publicly available information to recommend videos to you. And nobody wants their information made public. So going forward, you can't recommend a video to anybody.
Yeah.
So like the EU, I think this is like everybody is wrong on this one.
No, part of it is part of the problem. Like with this Italian action, is that they find it very, very easy to pass a law saying, well, you have to inform people, you have to be open and forthright, but they're not going to define examples of what is going to meet our legal definition of open and forthright, and that's where these kind of problems happen. And also, like I agree with you, Renee. There's when you want to control Google and you start saying that you have to explain exactly how the search algorithm works, you have to explain exactly how certain results get promoted and others will not get promoted. Saying, well, great. So now you're basically saying you must make the search algorithm completely useless because it will be nothing but 80 first pages of links to things that have nothing to do with what you searched for. Yes, it's like you have to have people who understand what is the goal and what is a reasonable attack towards that goal.
I can understand if you're giving somebody Gmail or some sort of valuable service for free. Does Apple give us a valuable service for free when we sign up for an Apple account?
The Apple account.
You get like 5 gigabytes of storage, and you get free email and free calendaring, and you get all the basic tier of iCloud.
I mean, the Apple account.
How much
is it reasonable for Apple to say, well, we're giving you this free service, so you have to give us information for ads? Is that a reasonable?
They do
That's
a
what Google
for
says.
apps. Like they do make a privacy policy. Like and I find it annoying. Like this is the other problem, is that like there is dialogue fatigue that sets in really quickly. Like if you install an iPhone fresh, like I do 4 or 5 times a year, you can't open apps. Like even sometimes when you update it, this is what's new in Notes. This is the new privacy thing. 2 people are shaking hands. Can we explain to you how we're shaking hands and why? Right. Like, no, I just want to use Notes.
That's probably Apple's thinking is, well, we could pop that up, but people won't like it.
Well, they do. Like, you just have to click into it, and they probably mean that like you should have the whole thing like right away. But like, it's so frustrating. Like some apps do that, and you got to scroll through this whole thing, and only then is a check mark, because that's done to prove that you've read the entire thing. Only then does a check mark pop up.
Oh, I know.
And you got to press
that.
the button, and then you press the second button to say that you read. Yeah.
So if I go to privacy and tracking, it's all third party. Allow apps to request to track. It's all third party.
So there's a second. Yeah, if you go to, I'll go with you.
But that's where I would go as a user. I would go to settings, privacy, tracking, and I would want that switch to turn off Apple's tracking. It's not there.
Yeah, a lot of people want that. Apple's argument, and which I don't agree with, is that it conflates first and third party tracking. They want to have separate screens for first party and third party tracking.
But they
because
vary.
Everybody else's first party tracking.
Okay,
is in
so
their
where
app.
is it down here? Analytics and improve. Oh, here it is, way at the bottom. Apple
advertising. Yeah.
Okay. So, and I have turned that off. And then you can also, this is actually good, view ad targeting information. It's not available right now. Okay, never.
Well, no, because you turned it off. You have to turn it on
Good.
for like 48 hours, and then you can see it.
So that's a good feature. So there you go. It is, at least it's in privacy. It's just at the very bottom under Apple advertising. So that's fair. Analytics and improvements. That's just the data you sent, but you can turn all that off too, which is good. And it's nice because you can turn it off after the fact if you don't turn it off when you first install the phone. I think that's fair. I think that's adequate. I think it's adequate. Yeah. All right. Apple, I think we mentioned this last week. Don't expect any more Intel modems in the iPhone. Apple.
Well, they bought them. You mean Qualcomm?
Qualcomm or Intel.
They bought Intel's.
Right.
Well, they bought Intel's cell phone service. So,
okay.
So yeah, you're not going to
So they have Intel's radios. You're not going to get any more Qualcomm either, because Apple says we're going to start building. Actually, Ming-Chi Kuo says Apple will be doing a deal with TSMC to build those iPhone modems.
It sounds like they're only going to make
Qualcomm-ish though, because part of the deal, the settlement was that they would license Qualcomm's patents. It's very, very, as they learned when they decided to settle with Qualcomm, it is really hard to build a modem without Qualcomm patents. So it sounds like they're going to do very similar to what they did with the ARM chips to begin with, and that is they licensed the Cortex cores, and then step by step they started replacing them with their own CPUs, their own GPUs, their own everything. This is going to be like they're using Qualcomm modems now. They're going to build an Apple modem, but using all of Qualcomm's licenses. They have to get an RF antenna array. They have to get a whole bunch of other communication parts. A modem is more than just a singular thing.
We had a really interesting conversation on Sunday on Twit. Sam Abul-Samid, our car guy, was there. So was Doc Rock. Doc Rock, we were talking about Apple's car initiative. Doc Rock said one of the goals of the car initiative may not be to sell a car, but merely to develop intellectual property, patents, that you will then license to other people.
I think they're going to make a car. like they're doing a lot of work. Like that's a lot of work just to do that IP.
Well, it could be Plan B though. Because it looks like they're hiring so many people.
They're working pretty hard on Plan
CarPlay
A.
Plus, Leo. It's CarPlay Plus.
Although Sam made the point, they're hiring all those people because so many people are leaving. Right? They're really just replacing the engineers they're losing. Like Doug going to. Where did Doug was Doug Jones? Where did he go?
There's just a handful of these folks that really are in the middle of this.
Yeah.
So everyone just keeps passing. Everyone just keeps finally offering more money than the last one, and then someone else more money. Like the folks that are really in the middle of this are making insane salaries. Because they're the only ones that know how to do it.
Every time they cross the street, their salary doubles.
Exactly.
It's a good deal.
Remember they hired Latner right after he invented Swift. Like the next year, he left and went to Tesla and worked there for a year. And then
Right. Apple lost its head of battery development to Volkswagen. But again, they'll hire somebody else, and then there'll be a story. Look, Apple just got Tesla's battery guy. And it's like,
they said they'll just finish his mission at Volkswagen and hire him back in 2 years with all the information that Volkswagen had.
Yeah, so there you go.
We'll see.
So you think they're really going to build a car? We talked about this last week. I just thought it was an interesting, and maybe it's a secondary strategy, but it is true. Doc Rock said they're going to be like IBM or Qualcomm. They're just going to have all of this intellectual property over smart cars, full self-driving, and then everybody will have to license it from Apple.
Well, I'm not sure if it's going to be intellectual property, but they could be going for an angle like NVIDIA's going for, which is saying we're going to build the chips that are specifically optimized for this task. They're putting so much R&D into self-driving technology because they don't want to build a car. They want to build the chips that all the other car makers are going to want to put into their stuff. More than anything else, one part of the race is at some point there is going to be a federal or at the minimum a federal advisory for state-level certifications on what a car has to achieve or has to be able to demonstrate in order to be certified for use on public roads. And if NVIDIA is the first company to say, we have the chips that you can put into whatever you want, these have already passed, you don't have to subject your hardware to new testing, that would be a huge leap forward. Apple is also in a good position if they really are leveraging they really are leveraging their ability to create custom CPUs, custom SIPs for what they want to do. If they can really scale this up, maybe the end game for Apple Silicon is not necessarily the most powerful desktop on the planet. It's, we can now make computers that are so immensely powerful that we can manufacture them at scale, put them in cars, and let the car do things that had breakthrough limitations that only existed because of lack of processing.
Well, that was one of our conversations is Apple making chips to sell to other car companies. Do you think Apple would ever sell its Apple Silicon?
They're just not really an OEM style company, that's going to sell the chips out. I think
that was my thought.
They want to make sure people use their, CarPlay and which works fairly well. And I think that gives them a lot of data and a lot of information that's super useful for them in the short term. I think that the Apple, I think Tim Cook was fairly binary about this at some point where he just said, Apple looks at where we can uniquely add value to a market, and then we go after it. They look at what these are the technology. This is the group of technologies we have. This is a market where we think we could make it better. I mean, most cars. I mean, I still feel like cars are where we were for the most part. The average car is where we were before the iPhone, which is that like I had a Trio, and if you ask me if I love my Trio. No, I don't really like it. It's the best. It was in my opinion, the best of a bunch of bad choices. The first one that was a good choice for me was the iPhone. And so the thing is that that I was excited about and that I was being surprised and delighted every day or I can't believe it does this thing, And so I think that is, I think that Apple's looking for, they obviously think that there's something there at the end of that tunnel. And so I think that they're going to keep on going down that path. And I think that,
you raise an interesting point. There's no privacy setting in CarPlay, is there? They're just gathering it all up.
No, if you're going to make a car, for both Google and Apple, if you're doing a car, what you really want is people using every car as a data. To have you learn more.
Tesla's secret sauce was that they made everything so they got all the data. And that was a real advantage to them in developing full self-driving.
That's why Google Maps is so good, right? Because it's got all those people. The reason they can tell you how long.
It's probably why there is an Apple Maps, right?
Well, for the car, yeah. But it also you need the maps for AR and a bunch of other things. Maps are super useful if you're thinking a decade out.
Yeah. But you're thinking that way because you want to collect all that data, right? And you want to make the maps good enough and so forth.
But that does bring up another issue, though. If Apple were to start to decide that we're going to be selling at least maybe not chips, but a board. Here's a board that that takes all the inputs you want and will support all the self-driving stuff. Are they going to be okay with selling the chips, selling the board, selling the software, whatever, with the knowledge that, hey, GM is going to be putting this in a car that's also going to be collecting consumer data, selling access to it to whoever they want to try to monetize this customer? Is Apple going to restrict them to a license to say that, by the way, all of the user's personal data is in a secure enclave? You don't have even the ability to get at it, even if you wanted to violate our trust on that.
I just don't think that Apple. I think that there's no the putting their board into a traditional market car is not going to provide the margins that Apple's going to be interested in. It's not. It's a low margin business that they're putting a low margin card into as an OEM, and I don't know where Apple puts OEMs anywhere else. And so I think that if they're interested in a car, they're interested in a car. I think that they're interested in doing a car.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe as I keep saying, I have no idea what they're interested in. I find the argument that they're making a car very logical, very truthful. I think it fits in very, very well with what we know about the character of Apple and what seems to move them. However, I don't see why they would want to buy into such an immense pile of complications, hurt.
We said the same thing over the smartphone.
Yeah,
said exactly the same thing over phones.
It's not quite the same thing, I think.
But here's my attitude towards this is Apple is desperate to find, and they should, and their business model requires them to find a successor to the amazing success of the iPhone. So they're going to try things, and they have at least 3 areas they're trying. We've talked about this before. Car is one of them. Augmented reality, we're going to talk about that in a second, is another one. And health is a third. And they're smart. They're working on. Why should you? They have enough money to work all 3.
And AI.
And AI, yeah.
A lot.
Although I feel like Apple is inevitably, because they don't gather as much information. Maybe they do. Does Apple gather? I guess they do. They get as much.
I don't think they gather the same. I don't think they gather as much information, but you can also build things that aren't yet necessarily using information from the past. If you look at a lot of what they're doing, even in stuff like Final Cut in Motion with the tracking stuff that they've added, it's taking a whole different level of I can identify this and I can pull it out and I can track these things to it.
Yeah, it's really important, obviously. But Google and other companies have a kind of a head start. No, you don't think so?
That was Tim Cook's
I think they do
last
have
week with the LA Apple Store. We said the 3 things that they're working on are automation, artificial intelligence, and VR. He thinks, and he makes it sound like they're not. Again, these aren't products. It's like screens aren't products, but an iPhone has a screen.
What does
Mac
he mean
has a screen.
by automation?
Automation is like things like the car, but the car is not the only thing they're working on. He thinks that those are the core technologies, the way that connectivity and displays and things were, again, like an Apple Watch, an iPhone, and a Mac all have radios, they all have screens, they all have all these things, but they're separate products. And he believes the products of the future will have various levels of AR and VR, various levels of AI, various levels of automation. And those are the key technologies Apple has to control.
For his point of view, the most important thing of the car is not a vehicle, it's the autonomy. It's the...
Yes,
I would say...
The car is just prominent.
It's just an expression of something that Apple is really what Apple's
but
really.
They could be making robots too. Like I'd be imagining.
Yeah, in fact, he even said an autonomous car is a robot. He said that last spring.
Yeah.
Well, I also think it's just a seamless experience. Like, and when a seamless experience across many different things that I think that HomeKit is all part of that. Although I don't think that they're doing it very well. I just think that Apple has to take it over and start making their own products. Like I think that the getting other people to do it has not been successful, and so I think that but building this thing where I can seamlessly go from one place to another. I can go to one thing to another. You're seeing this constantly with Apple is I can now have my iPad be another screen for my computer. I can have my phone play movies on my Apple TV. I have all these things that are all interconnected to each other. I can walk up and my car knows that it's me because I have a watch that says it was me. I have a phone that is me, and I get close to the car and it's probably me, and I can just open the door. I mean, I know it's me more than the key. So I think that those kinds of all of that being seamless is, I think Apple is going to constantly be building that ecosystem.
So here's an interesting tidbit from Scooter X in our chat room. According to Porsche, who has CarPlay in its cars, Apple doesn't collect a lot of information. They only collect information whether a car is accelerating while CarPlay is in use. Android Auto collects pretty much everything you can get from an OBD2 port. Vehicle speed, oil and coolant temperature, throttle position, engine revs. So somebody who knows, an auto manufacturer who implements both, says that actually Apple's very parsimonious in what it collects. But Google collects everything. That makes sense.
That is so true to form. But from what Alex said, if you take Apple's analogy of you can have our device and it'll be a screen for other things, that version for Google is information that we will take personal information and use it to power pretty much everything that you do that happens within the Google universe. And also, you're also helping Google to understand how people operate cars. We were speaking earlier about how one of Tesla's biggest advantages in its quasi path towards level 5 autonomy was the fact that each one of their cars, even though even before self-assistive technologies were really hot in those things, it was still collecting data about what does the road look like, how do drivers respond to this, that, and the other, what can it see, what can it not see, what are the blind spots. That sort of stuff is where when you have a Google device in every single car, it can also figure out, why did this person accelerate at this juncture? I know where this person is. I know that there's a curve coming up and the speed limit in this intersection drops down from 45 to 25. Why did they not slow down sooner? Or why are they turning at this point? So there's so much in this gumbo that we have to pick apart that we really can't trust anybody. It's like the Eiger sanction.
So this is what Tim Cook told Kara Swisher back in the spring. And it actually is exactly what you were saying, Alex. We love to integrate hardware, software, and services and find the intersection points of those because we think that's where the magic occurs. And that's what we love to do. And we love to own the primary technology that's around that. The autonomy itself is a core technology, in my view. If you take a step back, the car is, in a lot of ways, a robot. An autonomous car is a robot. And so there are lots of things you can do with autonomy. And we'll see what Apple does. So that really implies, and that confirms what he said yesterday in L.A., that the three legs of the Apple tripod are not what I was saying, car, health, and AR, but really autonomy, AR. And what did he say the third one was, Renee?
AI, AR,
AI.
VR, and automation. Automation.
Well, I feel like AI and automation are related, but anyway. Let's take a little break. I do want to talk about the AR rumor because Ming-Chi Kuo's at it again, or as you would say, Renee, Kuo Ming-Chi. But our show today brought to you by Melissa. Well, we just were talking about it. Having accurate customer data is very important for your business. Now, this is data your customers are giving your business. The problem is it's changing all the time. Did you know 36 million address changes were processed by the Postal Service last year? 36 million. That means a huge chunk of customers you could have the wrong address for. 30% of customer data goes bad each year, but Melissa makes sure that your customer data is accurate and current. They've been doing this for 35 years, which explains why over 10,000 businesses trust the address experts. It's a money maker for you, or at least it keeps you from losing money, sending bills, brochures, catalogs to the wrong person. Melissa has a renewal rate of over 92% because the typical return on investment realized by Melissa customers is 25%. What can you verify? A lot. Melissa's global address verification service verifies address information for 240 plus countries and territories. Addresses, but also emails, phone numbers, names. People change their names. They get married. They decide they want to be called Pumpkin. Whatever. You'll know. Hi, Pumpkin. And you can even add to your customer profile with public demographic information like marital status, social media handles. Melissa's flexible deployment options mean you can use it the way you want to use it. They've got an amazing API. So a lot of companies just add it to their customer service software so that when a customer service rep is entering names, addresses, phone numbers, they fix the typos, the errors as you know, on demand as you go at the point of entry. Same thing for shopping carts and other database entry because customers often get their address wrong. I used to type the wrong street address all the time when we first moved. Melissa has new apps on iOS and Google. The Lookups app lets you search addresses, names, and more at your fingertips. You can have it on-prem. There's a web service, SaaS. There's secure FTP processing, so you can upload and download a cleaned up address list. And don't worry, your data is always safe. Melissa continually undergoes independent security audits to reinforce their commitment to data security, privacy, and compliance requirements. SOC 2, HIPAA, GDPR compliant, and also the best support. If you sign up for a service level agreement, Melissa's Global Support Center gives you the best 24/7 world famous support. In G2 Crowd's 2021 grid report, Melissa scored 89%. This is, by the way, Melissa users voting. 89% for ease of use, 91% quality of support, 96% ease of doing business with, as well as 93% meets requirements. People love Melissa, and that matches Melissa's commitment to providing the best data quality and address verification software there is. Make sure your customer contact data is up to date. Try Melissa's APIs in the developer portal. Easy to log on, sign up, and start playing in the API sandbox 24/7. Get started today with 1,000 records cleaned for free. Melissa.com/twit. Melissa.com/twit. Thank you so much, Melissa, for supporting us. They've been with us for some time now. And thank you, MacBreak Weekly listeners and viewers, for using that address so that they know you saw it here. Melissa.com/twit. All right, Ming-Chi Kuo. Say his name right.
Guo
Ming-Chi says, and by the way, he's an analyst with supply chain, his fingers deep in the supply chain. So
he's a supply chain exfiltrator.
He pretty much knows what's being made, I guess, what's being manufactured. He says, and actually he predicted in March that there would be a AR/VR, probably a mixed reality headset released next year. Now more technical information, 2 processors, one with the same level of computing power as the M1. That's a pretty broad range, but and then a lower end chip that's going to just handle input from the sensors. Headset, he says, has at least 6 to 8 optical modules. And that makes sense because it's it looks like a VR, the drawings we've seen look like a VR helmet. It's not a see-through. And he says, that's right. You'll get cameras, 6 to 8 optical modules, which will provide video see-through for augmented reality. The headset is also said to have 2 4K OLED. Now, I don't know if this is a mistake. Micro OLED displays from Sony. I guess in that size, they could be pretty expensive, but they would certainly look very, very good, those micro OLED displays. What do you think? First of all, Renee, he's trustworthy to some degree, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, like he does make guesses based on what he sees in the supply chain, and those always come down to just like his experience. So sometimes he guesses wrong, and there's also been a lot of movement. Like Mark Gurman had a very similar story a couple of weeks ago, and then just this week he said that the timelines are actually much further out than he thought that they were. So I would take all of this with a very large size grain of salt. And also there seems to be like this weird conflation in a lot of media articles where they think the VR headset and the AR headset are the same thing.
It's 2 products,
and they're not.
Right?
They're
it's
two very
different products. Yeah.
One's like. The VR headset's like an Apple TV. It's meant for you to have like this big display in your face, and you'll be doing like Fitness Plus and watching movies and playing games. And the AR headset is meant to be like this convenience thing where you don't even have to lift your wrist anymore to see like the basic information around you. But that's many more years out than the VR headset is.
This latest analyst report, Guo says fall of next year for I'll say VR, so it's clear. But he also says it'll be a standalone platform, and this may be a case of him confusing the 2 products because it makes sense. The AR headset has to be standalone, but the VR could be tied to something.
Well, and it could be a configuration thing as well. So you might use your phone to configure it and get it set up, and then it runs on its own, like a Quest, for instance. I have to go to Facebook to get it to run, and then my Then I never see it again because my kids use it.
Right.
But they come over every once in a while. I have to re-register or reconfigure something. And so I think that potentially it would be easier to configure the headset with an iPhone or iPad or your computer. But then once you're in it, my guess is it probably has the processing power to do a lot on its own.
I agree. It would be quite something if they could create a wireless connection to an iPhone that is fast enough that the latency wouldn't just drive you nauseous within 20 minutes with a VR headset.
He also said in the same. Go ahead.
I was going to say that a watch is independent and dependent at the same time. Right. I think that the interaction between the watch is a good model for what will be probably going on with the headset.
It's conceivable that the first device next year might actually be hooked up to an Apple TV or a computer in some form or fashion, and then the following one would be.
I don't think it'll be tethered.
You don't think it'll be tethered at all?
No,
I think it's going to be the other way around.
No. Yeah.
The first one's going to be independent because it has Mac level processing on it. The second one, like a pair of glasses, are just non-trivial. And it's not.
But it wouldn't be tethered. It would be paired to make the distinction.
It would be paired.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, the way the original Apple Watch was, and then over subsequent generations, it'll get more and more independent the way the Apple Watch is.
Right. I would love a pair of Apple spectacles. In fact, that's what Quo says. He says they have a 10-year timeline to replace at least 1 billion iPhones with these glasses in the next 10 years.
Okay, well that's
more him and less than
that's him.
That's
a guess. Yeah.
That's we've seen a lot of dates like this. Oh, by 2025. Oh, in the next 7 years. Oh, and whatever. Whenever I see those numbers, I always imagine that they got hold of some sort of communication or secondhand some communication that said, well, if we're going to have some sort of a target. Well,
I can tell you where this comes from. He even says this is Apple's sole ABF. I don't know what that is. Supplier. Unimicron will be the leading beneficiary. So this is clearly coming from Unimicron saying, yeah, we have an order for 1 billion of these in the next 10 years.
Well, there you go. And who benefits from that? Saying, hey, we're getting this huge contract from this amazing company for a transformative product. Boy, if I could legally buy more stock in my own company, I would do so. Too bad I don't know what I can do with this information. But all I was going for is that there's a difference between a date circled on a board somewhere in Cupertino said this is going to be our target launch date, and saying, well, we couldn't possibly get this together and any sort of a shippable order any earlier than this. I did like an earlier rumor. I think he also provided, which is that their first release of this is going to be a lot like other VR headsets, which is this is not this thing that you go into Walmart or Best Buy and buy to play lightsaber games on. This is a developer sort of oriented release that's going to cost a couple of $1,000s. Is not expected to be ready for. Again, some kid who just wants to play games or just wants to have an immersive experience. This is for people who want to develop the software that's going to be on another release 2 or 3 years in the line. That I can definitely believe.
ABF.
The two problems that we have with the reporting is there's two larger issues. One is the media is really bad right now. It's separating between what is a report and what is like the opinion attached to the report. Yeah. Like we'll get a Mark Gurman official Bloomberg story that's been vetted completely and they'll report on it. Then you'll make an offhand report on like a remark on Twitter or his newsletter going, yeah, I think Apple's going to be interested in this one day. And it gets blogged exactly the same way as the vetted report. And that's an issue. And then the other part is that like, the things that Quo says based on his, well, not just Quo in general, but there's a lot of stories that come up about LG and Samsung displays for these devices that are in industry rags whose sole purpose is to advocate for the deals that these companies want. It's a public negotiation tactic, well known in the industry, but people report on it as if it's news, and that conflates a lot of this information.
So Unimicron is a manufacturer. They're building up big time to make more ABF. This is something known as the Ajinomoto buildup film. It's a substrate, part of the packaging that protects chips needed to power your computer or car and allowing communication among them, which is clear as mud. But this substrate is what's made by Unimicron, and this is what he's basing this on, is that, Apple is, I imagine what he saw was, just like you said, Andy, maybe Unimicron named Apple, maybe they didn't. But we're building these factories because we've got a very big client that wants a lot of substrate.
Yeah, if you're looking at ship dates, if you think that that's the substrate that they would use, and suddenly you see that whether they say anything or not, they've suddenly ramped up production for delivery in March.
Yeah.
Like you're going, well, I think that it is probable that Apple would announce something in June to prepare developers and sell something in the fall. I think that it is almost certain they'll do it in 2023 if they don't do it in 2022. I think it's close enough to the surface that it's going to be a big deal. And again, if it comes out, I think what we've watched is one of the more masterful rollouts of technology, because what they're solving that I don't think that Facebook has solved very well is the development of the content and the breadth of the content is all these tools that they're building for developers for, when you look at, again, most of the features added to Motion and Final Cut have more to do, and even Logic, have more to do with the AR than they have to do with video. And so they're so a lot of those tools are really built for something that isn't there yet, and so that is going to, I think, is something that they're correcting from what they did with iBooks, which is you didn't have any tools to build it, and so the thing is that I think that Apple is in a really interesting position where they've spent 5 years, paving roads for a city that didn't exist, and now they're about to drop that city into place.
So it's interesting because ABF, it turns out, is one of the components that's causing the chip shortage, and the companies that make ABF, by the way, are suddenly soaring in value because supplies of ABF are likely to remain constrained until at least 2025. And so that's why that's why Unimicron and these other companies are building these factories as fast as they can. This is a key component that is part of the chip shortage. It's interesting.
Yeah, I think Apple will probably charge $2,000 or $3,000 for these headsets, and they'll sell as many as they can make.
Yeah,
and I don't know how many that is.
And that
I don't know how many they'll make, but they'll be able to sell.
Contributing to the wavy timeline too is, can we make them?
I think even if they can make hundreds of thousands or millions, it's worth doing because they're going to start to be able to gather what's working and not working.
Yeah. Great.
But also, I like the idea of a company at that scale deciding that our plan is not to own the market with the first release. We can't own the market because we don't understand the market yet. We're going to create a platform that makes sense for us to sell only 50,000, 100,000 of them, because the people who buy them are going to be people who are going to be very, very well motivated to accept that. No, it's not perfect. Yes, we're putting this in your hands because we need your input, we need your information, and you will also benefit by being a year ahead of everybody else. This also plugs into the car, where the car makes a little bit more sense when you realize that if you think of Apple making, let's say if we agree that they're making a car, a startup car company doesn't have to start up making as many cars as they made iPhones the first year. They can actually build just 10 to 20,000 cars and say that this was a good startup. If they made a good startup release, if they learned a lot from it and they put some cars on the road that made people see them passing by and thinking, well, gee, I've got still a good 5 or 6 years left in the car that I own right now, or my lease isn't up for another 2 or 3 years. But gosh, when it's time for me to get a new car, maybe I will be buying an Apple car in 3 or 4 years. So that's the sort of stuff I love. This is why I keep defending Google Glass, because I thought that they didn't want to put it into every single store. They said that, look, we're going to release these in dribs and drabs. If you buy one, you're going to have to come to an office and we will fit you for it and walk you through how to use it, because we need to figure out what people are going to be using this for. You learned such interesting stuff from that.
I have to admit, I loved Google Glass, and I think that the thing that made it the coolest was the thing that was its downfall, which was the camera. The camera made it weird, but it was so powerful. Like being able to give you a perfect point of view, and the key is you could see the viewfinder easily and be able to show someone something, or be able to show this is what you're. I have pictures of me swinging my daughter when she was 2 or 3 years old or whatever with Google Glass, where it's a picture that you couldn't shoot any other way, because I'm swinging around saying, okay, take a picture, and so I think that there is, there's an incredible, value in getting ahead of that. As Andy said, I think that Apple, when I was watching, speaking of my daughter again, last night she was doing some climber thing on the Quest, and she was seated doing this thing, right? Like doing something. And I realized, if you had a self-driving car and you put those goggles on, you could be doing all kinds of things while you're going from one place to another. Like you could, the two of them could possibly fit together really nicely.
A couple of quick stories. Some leaks of the new Swift Playgrounds 4. Developers who have access to it are NDA'd, but I guess not everybody keeps their word. And so 9to5Mac and others have pictures. Swift Playgrounds is interesting because it lets you build and submit your apps all on the iPad to the App Store.
Yep.
Here's some screenshots from 9to5Mac. Among other things, it shows you how you can create your own icon within Swift Playgrounds. Wow. It also lets you preview and see changes in real time as you type. Live editing, that's pretty cool. You can even do it when you share the project with someone else via iCloud Drive, so multiple people can work on the same project at the same time. Apple kind of showed that at the WWDC this year. Users can test the app in full screen, explore Swift UI controls, search across all files in a project, use quick inline code suggestions, and switch back and forth between Swift Playgrounds and Xcode. What's really interesting is Swift Playgrounds was developed and released really as a way to teach kids how to learn how to code, and it was very basic. It's gotten more and more powerful. Now it looks like it's actually a development environment.
Yeah. I think the kids who learned programming in Swift with Swift Playgrounds soon proved that, no, you can actually become really great commercial programmers just with the skills that you learn through this platform. I think it's one of Apple's, of all of Apple's successes, I think Swift Playgrounds is Apple's strongest quiet success, the one that you don't really talk about, the one that isn't pointed to as an influence. But my goodness, if the goal was to make sure that the next generation of important Mac OS and iOS programmers don't really care about any sort of evolution of C++ in order to get things live, drive, and survive, boy, was that a success.
It does look like you can actually write some Swift code in it, which is interesting. So Apple, when they announced Swift Playgrounds 4 at WWDC, did not give a timeline, but it's, according to 9to5, requires some features of iPad OS 15.2, which is now available as a beta. I think that means maybe this will come out with 15.2, Renee. Does that sound right? Be later this year?
I hope so. I mean, that's always my hope. Sometimes this stuff gets pushed further, but I always hope for the next release.
This will be something to watch for. Very interesting. Now it's time for the problems report. I am experiencing none of these, but I've heard from people. In fact, I heard somebody on the radio show call me saying iOS 15 broke my Bluetooth hands-free. And according to 9to5, some iPhone 12 and 13 users are reporting that. You see it on Reddit primarily and on the Apple support forum. The issue appears to primarily affect drivers of Toyota cars and trucks, and some Audi and Volvo cars, but not quite as widespread. One user called Toyota. They said, we don't have any fix. Even our app isn't working properly. So maybe this is going to require a fix from Apple. One user said the iPhone was unusable for calls in his car because of dropping Bluetooth. So just be aware of. Another problem I'm hearing about, and I haven't experienced either, is if you have a 16-inch, I don't have a 16-inch, maybe that's why. 16-inch MacBook Pro, some people are reporting that the MagSafe charger stops working when you close the lid.
Why would you ever close the lid? Have you seen that display? It's mini LED. It's HDR.
I have to say, why would you even plug in MagSafe? You can go days without it. So I don't know. Have you had that? You're the only one I know with a 16-inch MacBook Pro.
No. So like a lot of people on Twitter that I really respect are like, I just use it in clamshell mode. And I'm like, but that's one of the best displays you could buy. It's better than any of those standalone monitors. You have to spend thousands of dollars to get a display and you're clamshelling it. And they're like, well, I like what I like.
And you want to get dust on it? Oh, for shame, for shame.
Just use the display. Use it. Love it. Live it. Get a suntan. It's beautiful.
Yeah. So, just if you notice when you have the MagSafe plugged in, normally when it's charging, it's green. If you close the lid and it turns amber, you have the problem. And Apple's, not saying anything yet. Although according to one user,
a lot of these are
Apple,
Maverick issues.
Yeah, exactly.
They'll be fixed in software updates.
Yeah. Apple has introduced a new MacBook upgrade program for business partners where you can pay it off over time. Apple business partners can distribute the 13-inch MacBook Pro, MacBook Air, or 14-inch MacBook Pro, or 16-inch MacBook Pro to staff for 3% of their retail list prices as monthly installments. So if you do the math, you get a 14-inch for $60 a month, 16-inch for $75 a month. There is no Mac desktop as part of this program. I can understand that. There are a lot of businesses that are replacing their Macs with these new computers because they're so fast.
Yep.
I mean, if you look at the phone, the computers, the car, all of those build a really great subscription service. Or you just pay a certain amount a month for all of these things, and you get a new one when we're done with it. I think that's the model is giant subscription services.
Yeah, Micah found a post on Reddit by a developer from Reddit who said, we recently found that the new MacBook M1 MacBooks cut our Android build times in half. Do a little math. For a team of 9, you buy $32,000 worth of laptops. It'll save you $100,000 over a year in productivity. The break-even point happens in 3 months. So
yeah, and like for me, it's not even like we talked about. It's not even that the times are faster, though they are. They're like 10 times faster, but it's being offloaded to discrete processing units. So the main CPU and GPU are freedom for me to do something else. So it's like having 2 computers sometimes. We live in a beautiful age.
Yeah. Anything else we want to talk about here? It's not really in our portfolio. We'll be certainly talking about it tomorrow on Twig and on Twit. Jack Dorsey suddenly abandoning his CEO role at Twitter. He'll stay at Square. Parag Agarwal is taking over. He's a long-time... Actually, Ben Thompson had a great piece on this.
He tweeted, "I love you," and then left. It was remarkable. I love
In case
Twitter
you haven't
so much,
heard,
and the next tweet
I'm
was,
gone. I'm out of here.
I'm just going around the store for some cigarettes. I'll be right back.
Where did Daddy go?
Stock went up 10% when they heard the rumor, and then when they found out that Agarwal was going to take over, it started going back down because the stock market's saying, what are you going to do to make some money, Twitter, and having somebody from the inside take over? Yeah. Actually, Ben Thompson said, just start charging for Twitter, period. Just make it a paid service.
Make Twitter Blue like every other premium, like YouTube Premium, where it actually gives you valuable stuff.
I paid for Twitter Blue partly because I just want to support the service. So I don't know.
Imagine that. It's like $10, but there's no ads. I mean, that'd be amazing.
Yeah. Well, I think you could probably do it for $3 and just make it worthwhile. That's how much Twitter Blue is, and make it worthwhile. Yeah. I don't think they're making.
I don't know. All I'll say is Twitter is amazing when you use the filters. Like it's like my Twitter experience is so great, but I have 150 terms that I don't want to see. Yeah. So I literally just keep, if I see a tweet that I don't like, I just go, what word in there can I search for and say, don't show me that again, and I just put it in the list.
Standard video blocked.
Yeah.
I won't see that again. Yeah. So and the ads are. I mean, I block most of the ads just as to be passive aggressive. And so I know it's not going to make any less of them.
And it doesn't make much difference. Their ads are not making them a whole lot of money.
The problem is with ads is that when Ford ran an ad, I hit block. And it says, "Did you want to block Ford?" I was like, "Sure." So like now Ford can't even tweet to me. So the thing is that blocking function inside of Twitter is devastating for the advertiser because you're actually
you can make
destroying your own.
Yeah,
because it's not an enemy. I just don't.
Well, I'm not see anything.
I'm not angry at you. I just don't see. But it's not an enemy. It's kind of like I just don't want to play anymore. Because you put an ad into my thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
here's his illustration. Ben Thompson's illustration. Instagram is a laid-back, relaxed experience, which is why its advertisements work well. He said, Twitter is intense and combative, and far more likely to be tied to something happening in the physical world, whether that be watching sports or politics or doing work. And so you're very unlikely to click an ad on Twitter because you're busy or you're doing something. You're doing something. So he suggests, I think he's probably right, that maybe the best solution for Twitter would be to make it a paid social network.
They promoted the blockchain guy, right? Promoted the The NFT is going to mint every tweet as an NFT.
Yeah. I thought Parag Agrawal was CTO. Yeah, he was a CTO.
Yeah, he was, but he was in charge of Twitter's blockchain projects,
blockchain.
of which
I
still would love to know what that story
don't
is.
even understand what that is. Yeah. Anyway, it's not
Every
really
tweet
our
is
story.
written to the blockchain, Leo.
But you guys are, you're Twitter users, so you can.
It'll be interesting once the founder goes. That signals a sea change for every policy, every bit of dogma that exists within that organization.
Right.
Microsoft changed as soon as the last of the old guard left. When the founders of Google left, a lot of its reputation as a place where we just pursue ideas, just like it's a college campus, and we make money off of some of them, immediately went away in terms of we'll pursue ideas at some point. You got to show me the do-re-mi, or else you're canceled. Company after company after company. I think Apple's probably the only company that kind of bucked that trend, and probably because every CEO had such personal relationships with the one that came before. Excuse me. Probably because Tim Cook had such a personal relationship with Steve Jobs, and Steve Jobs created a culture of everybody who is in a leadership position there is essentially right on the same boat, steering the sails towards the same direction. But we'll see what happens with Twitter, whether it solves all the problems or whether all the problems become just more so.
Mm-hmm.
Only
But Jack didn't just leave as a founder. He took a huge swipe at founders as CEOs on his way out the door. He was like, I think we need a pause from this, which is odd coming from someone who came back as a founder CEO.
Yeah.
There's just so much drama to this that we haven't seen yet.
Yeah. Yeah, and everyone's going to be speculating, and it could be as simple as this is just so extra. I'm a really, really rich man. I could be doing anything I want, and this is not what I want to do as a man who is now in his who now is more years behind him than for him.
I often think, like, with a lot of these folks that have just an inordinate amount of money and they get in so much trouble, I often wonder, I go, because I personally, I have a lot of good ideas, and I don't know, I have a lot of ideas. I have a lot of ideas that I think are good. If I had a lot of trouble with it, I'd be like, I think if I had all that money, I would just go, I'm going to go do one of the other ones. like I'm going to stop doing this one and start over again somewhere else.
I had all that money. I'd be living on my private island in the Bora Bora or something.
I don't know if I would do that, but I would definitely go pursue other ideas.
Well, he's going full time on
right,
Square.
exactly. We just keep on doing it.
Square is where the trendy Web 3.0 people are hanging out, Leo. It's much better than the goofy Web 2.0 Twitter.
Yeah. Apple has announced new limited edition Beats Studio Buds with the colors of the African flag, red, black, and green, the Pan-African flag, and they will be available at the clothing store Union, which of course is in Los Angeles and Tokyo. It's a black-run business, and so this kind of black-owned business. So this kind of makes sense. It's pretty. I kind of like it
too.
Are they? You like it, the Studio Buds?
Yeah, they're good.
After the problems people have been having with Samsung's Galaxy Buds Pro infecting their ear, I'm not sure I want to put things in my ear anymore. I'm gonna stick with it.
You can get the AirPods 3. Then they go over the on the ear, not in the on the ear.
AirPods 3 go over the on the ear instead of in the.
Yeah, they don't go into the ear canal. They just sit on top of them, so they're all in ear.
I have the AirPod
in ear and some are on in
Pro
ear.
Max. $550 waste of money.
You got to wear them both. You got to put the AirPods Pro in and then put the AirPods, because that way you can edit while you're talking to us. Like, we think you're listening.
I bought pink
you're actually
ones,
editing.
and I like to wear them on conference calls to blow people's minds. They're good for conference calls. They sound great. Not so good for listening to music. All right. Gurman says Apple's still working on an AirPower-like charger. I don't buy that for one moment.
He says he thinks. Like, so that's again where you have to start parsing, because that's not a Bloomberg story. That's in a newsletter, and he says, I think. He doesn't say people familiar with the matter have told me.
No, he's just making it up, basically, right?
Well, it's just like everybody can think anything, Leo. We think Apple does all that stuff every show.
I think.
People just don't blog it.
I bet. I'd guess. All right.
It must be really difficult when other people are generating content based on everything that you say. where on this show we can say I think oftentimes
Nobody
what
says,
I enjoy.
Andy Ihnatko thinks.
well, sometimes, and that's when the police come. But what I mean is that we can talk about how our beliefs or what we're concluding on an Apple car is based on here's what we're thinking and here's what, and let's have a discussion on what we think Apple does, as opposed to breaking news on Dylan's Super Hyper Tech Blog channel on YouTube. Like and subscribe. Blockbuster announcement revealed on confirmed : Apple is going to be developing a car, but only in limited numbers to begin with, say Apple analysts. Well, thank you for calling me an analyst, but
Apple is selling. No, I'm not going to do this story. Let's take a break, actually, because I think we've got some good picks this week, and I want to get to those in just a little bit. How about that?
Plus, we haven't even started The Great Gatsby yet, okay? It's not even a really long novel.
No, you guys did a
Lindsay
good job.
will walk out of here so fast.
We got like 20 minutes to get through the entire text. I don't know if I can read that fast.
You filled the time very well. Our show today brought to you, we'll get to our picks in just a second. Renee, Andy, and Alex. Our show today brought to you by Wealthfront. All right, I know you got stonk memes up the wazoo and diamond hands and you're riding your rocket ship to the moon, but can I tell you, as fun as day trading is or buying individual stocks is, it is not the way I would recommend, or anybody I know would recommend, building long-term wealth. Now, it's fine. Have that little stonk fund all for your own, but really, you really should be opening a Wealthfront investment account today. The odds are not in your favor if you're doing it alone. You should team up with Wealthfront instead. Investing is complicated. Sure, it's fun, but it's also a little bit like casino gambling. Not with Wealthfront. Wealthfront makes it easy. They have the right tools for every portfolio. You just answer a few questions, things about your time frame, what you're saving for, your aversion or love of risk. And then Wealthfront will create a portfolio of globally diversified, low-cost index funds personalized for you in just minutes. And that's such an important phrase. I want to say it again. You're not buying individual stocks. Wealthfront is creating a portfolio of globally diversified, low-cost index funds personalized for you. And when I say personalized, they really can. They've got clean energy funds, crypto trusts. Yeah, you can get into crypto this way. Tech, hundreds of other investments. They even offer a socially responsible portfolio, which is a mix of funds built around human rights, climate change, sustainability, and diversity. For those of us in Northern California, this is it. Actually, I really think Wealthfront is a great way to go because there's no manual trades, no picking stocks, no watching the stock market every day. That really, not only is that a productivity killer, it can really kill your feelings up and down and up and down. That's a lot of anxiety. Let Wealthfront automatically handle all your investing based on your preferences. That's what you control. That's what you set. And they can do things no one would want to do, things like lowering your tax bill with tax loss harvesting. They do that automatically. Or rebalancing your portfolio. You know, you're supposed to do that regularly. Do you even know what rebalancing your portfolio means? Well, Wealthfront does, and they do that automatically. Wealthfront is trusted with over $27 billion in assets, helping nearly 500,000 people build their wealth. Get your first $5,000 managed for free. Go to wealthfront.com/MacBreak. Wealth, WEALTH, wealthfront.com/MacBreak. It'll only take $500 to open your account, and you can grow your wealth the easy way and let Wealthfront do the work for you. So if you want to, you want to buy more AMC stock or whatever, go ahead. But you should really be putting the bulk of your savings in Wealthfront. Start building your wealth. Get your first $5,000 managed for free for life. Go to wealthfront.com/MacBreak, WEALTHFRONT, wealthfront.com/MacBreak to start building your wealth. Wealthfront.com/MacBreak. We thank them so much for their support of MacBreak Weekly. You support us by using that address, so don't forget, wealthfront.com/MacBreak. I'm going to start with Alex Lindsay today because Shutterbug wants to know where you got that great shirt you're wearing.
I 80% of my wardrobe is from
Eddie Bauer.
Eddie Bauer.
Yeah, he says he's been trying to
There's
find
an outlet
it
there
on
nearby.
Oh, see, that's the problem. It's the outlet. So he's been trying to find it
The
online.
outlet so Eddie Bauer, the outlet is different. So the outlet gets different clothes than the main
stuff they don't sell
website.
anymore.
The other thing is this shirt is probably like 5 years old. It's been all over the world. Like these, I've got like 8 of these shirts. So they're if it looks like I'm wearing the same one, I have a lot of them.
Sorry, Shutterbug.
Because when I could they have a special feature. I can wash them in a sink in a hotel and they'll be dry by morning. That's the real thing. So I bought a lot of them when I was in the before times when I was traveling all the time. These were like my uniform except for when I wore a tie. Then I had one nice thing, and then I had these and some other Eddie Bauer pants. So that was it. So anyway, what was I talking about?
You're talking about some very famous beats.
So I ran into this over Thanksgiving weekend. It was Thursday, and I was taking a break. I kind of worked a lot of Thursday, but I was like, I need a movie. So I sat down, and I don't know where the search came up, that it came up as 808. There is a documentary, I guess it came out in 2015 on the 808,
it's not just an area code, baby. It's a Roland drum machine, man.
The Roland drum machine basically created, a lot of what we heard in the 80s. And what was really fascinating, I just found the whole thing fascinating, like of how it came out and how it suddenly became this huge thing. And I will admit that I'm a kind of a fiend for all I watch is music documentaries. and the new world has gotten so much better because there's documentaries on synthesizers and documentaries on just the use of electricity in music and documentaries from the Beatles and documentaries from the,
Have you watched, did you start watching the Beatles documentary?
I did. I have to admit that it
kind of goes on and on, doesn't it?
I got about halfway through the first one and I was like, okay, this is going too slow.
Yeah, you really just feel like you're sitting just watching the lads. There's some great moments.
What I was left with is John has his moments. George is a hothead. John and George are both hotheads. Paul McCartney does most of the work, and Ringo's just happy to be there.
Yeah, that's right.
That's what I was left with.
That's really the bottom line.
Guy, yeah. He's happy to be there, so the 808, it just shows this incredible machine that you don't recognize until you see it. And I'll ruin a little bit of the ending of it just because you want to watch the whole thing, but the thing that just is fascinating about this machine is that they only made, I won't tell you why, they only made 3,000, or only made them over 3 years, 15,000 of these over 3 years, and that's all that was ever made. And there's a reason for it, and you find out at the end. You have to go watch it. And it's the most fascinating reason that you stopped making a device that was super successful that I've ever seen. And you just have to watch. I won't ruin it. I was going to ruin it. I'm not going to ruin it.
Is it on Apple TV Plus?
It is.
Good.
It's
so you don't
free.
Have to buy it. Okay.
I didn't pay for it, but it's worth it just to see this kind of this evolution of how music kind of came together. And it's funny watching the Beastie Boys, talking about it because they don't really. The two guys that are left don't really understand how it worked. Adam was the one that actually did all the work in that area, and so they're like, "Didn't we do this? And then we did this?" And he's like, "No, we didn't do it that way." And I don't remember. This is why we needed him. And so it's a really fun. It's a really fun documentary.
It's the drum track on sexual healing.
And they talk
Boys,
about
Paul Revere, Whitney Houston's "I Want to Dance with Somebody."
Well, and they talk about the one with Marvin Gaye. They said there was a guy in Belgium, and he said Marvin Gaye just came in, he programmed the whole song, and then sang it, and then left, and that was it.
Wow.
That was sexual healing. It was there's nothing else there except for him in that device. And then they said someone else bought it in Belgium, and they were like, "Oh, they hit one of the presets, and it was that preset.
It was a built-in preset."
No, it wasn't built in. No, it wasn't a built in. He had left it on the machine. He had left it on what he had done on the machine.
Oh, okay.
And then when they bought it,
much, yeah.
Someone told them that this was the one Marvin Gaye probably used, and they were like, "Sure, whatever." And then when they hit the first preset that was pre-programmed, that was not that someone had programmed into it. It was that song. And so it was. Anyway, it's a really, and people trade them around again because they don't make, now Behringer makes a new version. And what's funny is, Behringer makes the RD8, which is the remake of that. But the RD8 Mark II, which is coming out at the end of the year, what Behringer's changing between the RD8 and the RD8 Mark II is the thing that made them stop making them, made Roland stop making them,
interesting.
So anyway, there's a lot of intrigue. It's worth watching. And just this music is so much fun to watch. Like music documentaries are just
I watched the whole Beatles thing, and there's actually 3 more. 2.5 hours of just the guys noodling.
Oh, that was not fun.
It was a long, but there are moments
like
that
Curb
make
Your Enthusiasm for music.
Oh, you don't like that either, huh?
I don't like that either.
There are moments that make the whole thing worthwhile. I mean, watching Paul noodle around writing "Let It Be."
Yeah.
That's kind of amazing to watch. So I really enjoyed it.
I just have these 3 chords. I think it's just keep playing them over and over and over again. Like, oh my God, he's writing "Let It Be." Oh my God, he doesn't know what he has yet. He's gonna. Oh my God.
It's. I think you could have made a version. You could have made a version that was 2 hours long of all the footage, and then made another version for people who really want to watch the grass grow.
Well, it's not. There's plenty. There's the Let It Be movie. There's plenty of ways you can get your abridged version of the Beatles. But some hardcore fans, like Peter Jackson, the guy who did it,
right?
And I'll include myself. I'm watching it like a hawk, because there are these moments where you go, you have to. If you really know a lot of Beatles history too, there's a little bit of stuff in there, like at one point. Is it George Martin, or maybe it's the guy making the movie, Michael Hogg?
Oh God,
says you could always go back to the Philippines, and they go and they leave it at that. But if you know what happened to them in the Philippines, just like you could. So
and I did enjoy when they rolled in the multi-track and George Harrison's like, well, we better be careful with it because it's it costs 10,000 quid.
10,000 quid. It's mine. And I lent you my 8-track because apparently EMI wasn't willing to give him an 8-track.
Well, and the funny thing is, one of the guys, I guess one of their tech guys said he would build one from scratch.
Yes.
And I think George Martin said, we'd like to have one that actually works.
Yes. Okay, so you got a little bit out of this.
I did get it. There was just some point where it started to slow down. Like there was all these things at the beginning, and then started slowing down. And I have to go back to it. I think maybe I was just not in the mood for it. Maybe I had too much caffeine or something like that. And I need to go back and watch it because there was a lot. I will say at that pace, I remember a lot of it. Like I remember, it's like I'm.
And Lisa couldn't take it either.
The Beatles better.
She wanted to watch it, but she couldn't really take it either. It's one of those things. Glenn Johns, the guy you're talking about, the engineer, he said it's a bunch of garbage. But that's the movie. I think he shows up in there, and it's very interesting. For instance, as Paul's writing "Let It Be," Glenn Johns leans over and says, "You should make that word." He changes a word. John says, "Oh yeah, that's good." It's little things like that people, to me, like a super fan, are going.
Right,
yeah.
And the other thing I thought you'd be interested in is how they took 16 millimeter footage and up-res it to 4K, and it looks really good.
What's really cool is what Peter Jackson's doing with the technology that he used for all these movies. The World War II film was unbelievable, where they showed you.
Oh, wasn't that good?
Footage
I loved that.
And rebuilt it and recorrected it and put all that stuff back, and then put sound effects back into it, and you really felt like you were just there, And so I love what Peter Jackson's doing with doing something more interesting than just movies. I think the movies are great. And I think that what's interesting also
he's a wealthy man now. He just sold Weta, so he's doing all right.
And I think that technology, it's going to be really interesting to see how that goes under the Unity umbrella.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really interesting things that can happen there.
Yeah, it's good for us since we're stuck with Unity. Mr. Andy Anako, your pick of the week.
I got 2 cultural things to talk about. First of all, I was joking around about Great Gatsby, and it's okay for you to not like it. However, it's a perfect excuse for me to drop a YouTube link for you. A friend of mine, Bill Knack, he was one of the most cultured, most interesting people I ever met in my entire life. He was a sports writer for Sports Illustrated for decades, specializing in horse racing.
His book is incredible on Secretariat.
He was there when Secretariat was born. He was there when Secretariat died. He carried in his wallet for years and years and years a feather from Secretariat's stall that Secretariat just sort of like blew off of his nose and sort of landed on Bill, and he kept it in his wallet for years. And then of course, he was at an event in Madison Square Garden. the wallet got stolen, and he was just heartbroken about it. He was just one of the most amazing fellows. He died unfortunately in 2018. But one of his, if you went out with him, and if there was any sort of a group around him, at some point in the evening, he would recite from memory the last page of The Great Gatsby.
No.
And because he loved it so much, and his reading of it was a work of art in and of itself. And so there's a video of him giving one of these readings, and of course it's shot by Roger Ebert, so the cinematography is pretty okay. And it's perfectly okay for you to not like The Great Gatsby. I don't think it's.
And there were hardly any lights except the shadowy moving glow of the ferry boat across the Sound. And as the moon rose higher, the inessential houses began to melt away, until gradually I became aware of the old island here that flowered once for Dutch sailors' eyes, a fresh green breast of the New World. Its vanished trees, the trees that had made way for Gatsby's house, had once pandered in whispers to the last and greatest of all human dreams. For a transitory, enchanted moment, man must have held his breath in the presence of this continent.
And this is why Alex Lindsay does not read fiction. Right there.
Not the end. The whole thing.
I bet you didn't even get to the end.
I didn't get to that part. I really would have loved it if I'd seen that part. But I was gone. I got to the last like 30 pages, and I was like, they're not going to test anything more. I'm just going to read and I'm done. I'm done with this book.
No, I did, Alex. I did the exact same thing. It was one of those novels that it was the wrong time for me as a teenager, and particularly as something that I was supposed to read. Or I could go to the Brookline Booksmith and give them $1.50, and they'll sell me a little like yellow book that will explain what the book is to me, so I don't have to do it.
And many people use that to get.
Couldn't afford the Cliff Notes. I went for the Monarch Notes.
Oh, Monarch, even better. Yes,
that sort of thing.
What's your other pick?
Yeah, but the other pick is my vote for the best single Christmas album that in existence. Ella Fitzgerald Wishes You a Swinging Christmas.
Totally
This
agree.
is to me. It's there are a lot of great ones out there. This is my nomination for the greatest one. If you listen to this from start to finish, that will put you right in the December mood. No matter what holidays you observe or don't observe, this will put you in a pretty good swinging mood. I recommended it last year, and I kept getting so many people like contacting me. Oh my God! And that is the greatest album ever. Thank you so much for recommending it. So I wanted to make sure that this on December Eve, we get that in people's queue as early as possible. It's obviously on all the streaming services. Apple Music Plus has it. Everyone has it. But yeah, it's great.
Renee Ritchie, pick of the week.
So this is weird. It's Disney Plus, and I know a lot of people are super familiar with Disney Plus. A lot of the properties.
Apple Plus. What's Disney Plus?
Disney Plus is Disney's streaming service available in an increasing amount of places. And unlike a lot of companies, Disney resisted the urge to sub-license out everything that they possibly could. So they have a rather unified library. I mean, like, try to find Star Trek internationally, and it's a huge brouhaha because they tried to extract every penny of sub-licensing they could from it. But chances are, if you go to Disney Plus, you'll find Marvel, you'll find Star Wars, you'll find the Muppets, you'll find like everything you expect.
You'll also find the Beatles, by the way. I don't know if they own the Beatles, but that's where Get Back is.
Well, I mean, they had the money to give it to Peter Jackson to get some Beatles.
Maybe that's it.
These things are a virtuous cycle. But one of the things that I found really interesting, and I know some people, especially like including some people who I hugely respect, right on this panel, aren't the biggest fan of the way that a lot of this content is serialized. But I was watching some of the newer stuff. Like they've just got out the trailer for the Book of Boba, which is a new Boba Fett show with Tamora Morrison coming out over the holidays. And the Hawkeye show has just started, which has a real Christmassy sort of diehard vibe. And it occurred to me that we don't really get serialized content on this scale in North America anymore. We used to. I mean, famously, Star Wars and Indiana Jones were based on those Saturday morning serials that you'd go to, and there'd be the ongoing adventures of Superman and all sorts of things every week. And of course, in Asia, they're huge. Like some people have real trouble with a lot of Asian narrative fiction because it doesn't end. It's just perpetual adventures like Journey to the West or the Iron Crane or the Deer in the Cauldron. It's just like things just keep on going and you pick up whenever you want. And I'm not going to say they're soap operas. I'm not going to not say they're telenovelas, but they do have this thing where the stories grow and get richer and you do get lost. You do get found. You have some that you love, some that you hate, but they're doing something that's sort of unprecedented is they're doing it at Hollywood scale. So you have these shows and these movies, and the more you watch of them, the richer the sort of experience becomes. And I'm not going to spoil anything, but if you got to the finale of the last series of The Mandalorian, like people of my generation are just like totally lose it. Like you can go and watch the YouTube videos of people reacting to that. And it's because they've chanced upon these directors, these producers, people like Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni and Kevin Feige, who really love the source material, respect it enough to treat it well. They don't just look at it as exploitable IP. And they've woven these stories. And now the Book of Boba Fett looks fantastic. I know some people are tired of Tatooine, but I mean, like you hear Salacious Crumb laugh and you're like right back in Return of the Jedi. And Hawkeye, the setup is this young girl who lost everything. Her last memory was seeing him save the city in the first Avengers movie, and it ties into who she becomes in the beginning of these movies. And the sort of payoffs that you can get. I'm not going to go on much longer, but there was a scene in Batman Beyond years ago where old Bruce Wayne thinks the new Batman is in trouble and puts on the armor one last time. And you can't get to that emotion if you didn't watch the original Batman the Animated way back in the day. So they've really found this, again, some win, some lose, but there's a reward to be had. And there's no better time than the holidays because all of it is just there and just streaming. Shang-Chi just arrived. So you can watch all of this stuff now in IMAX experience, which is pretty good. I watched a bunch of them over the last week. So if you haven't yet, it's a good time to go and just watch your way through all the Star Wars and Marvel stuff that's up there.
I guess I deserve this because I spent too much time talking about the Beatles.
Sorry.
That's my punishment.
I was reading wuxia books, Leo, and it occurred to me, like it just because we don't have that in Western culture, and I love it. I love wuxia, like all those Chinese stories so much that I realize we do in fact have that. I
will watch Shang-Chi. Yeah. You're right. I should.
It's really good.
Yeah.
It was a really good movie. We really enjoyed Shang-Chi, and it. I will say that the series is probably what we're going to see as the future. Is we're going to see less and less feature releases. They'll still happen, but I think that we're going to because
don't they make more money though on a feature if it's a hit?
Not if you're no. Holding on to subscribers is way more valuable. It's way more predictable, and way more valuable than that's what they're. I mean, that's all the math. The math is having holding subscribers to your service is way more predictable. Like you're looking at all these people on the rock, hitting the rocks with their boats, trying to release these films, and I think everyone's pretty clear that the behavior is not going to go back to where it was before. When we go back to it, and so the era of the golden age of the feature film is probably over. And I think that it doesn't mean that there won't be any. Like radio is still here, like we still have theaters, like it's not, but it will be different, and it'll probably be much fewer screens, much fewer releases, and most of it because when you put all the money into the actors and you put all the money into all of the sets and everything else, stretching it out over 6 hours or 8 hours, and then putting it out slowly so that people can watch it over time, is just the ROI is on a predictable ROI of 100 million people paying $7 a month or whatever is. It's really good. It's a lot of money.
I owe you, Andy, for this pick of the week. It was your pick of the week, but I finally got a Merry Christmas present from Kevin Noki, and I'm very excited. He actually sent me a bonus gift, so I'll show you both of these. You mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, and I immediately ran to Etsy and bought it, and he ran through his entire print run. This is they call it the Delta Pi, which is a Raspberry Pi case designed for the Raspberry Pi 4 that looks exactly like, well, something you might recognize. Yep. Kevin, you did. Yeah, there's his. Now, beautiful I can't.
Frog design.
My problem is I don't have a Raspberry Pi 4. And I can't get one because they're
as soon as mine came, I bought what turned out to be must be the last Raspberry Pi 4 you can find anywhere. Yeah. And I'm waiting for deadlines to loose their hold of my
such a beautiful project. And he even has a fan in it and wires it up so that you can have a light on the front when it turns on.
And also so that the power switch will actually work. Raspberry Pis don't have an actual power switch. You just unplug them unless you have a hardwired switch and software that does it. Yeah.
So thank you, Kevin.
It has the right texture. There's no 3D printing lines. It has that sort of sandy sort of texture to it. Perfect. Of course, the logo is as close as he could make it without getting super
got an acorn,
sued.
I think
it's an acorn with a bite out of the nutshell pie.
Yeah.
But and also Raspberry Pis are just plain fun. It's like, it's great to have this thing on your desktop because you're an Apple nut. And by the way, you can easily put an emulator on it, so it will run anything that a Frog Design era Mac can run.
It probably runs
even
as well
as
as that Mac did.
Oh God, it's probably.
Is it a 2FX or is it a 2CI or what is it exactly?
I would probably say 2SI.
2SI
because I actually have a 2CI actually in the other room there, and the other 2SI is more of like a mini tower sort of design.
Right.
This looks more like a smaller version. Yeah, but it's so perfect. It reminds me how much I really like Frog Design's approach.
And I didn't even
language.
order this. He sent me this. This might look a little familiar to you.
Yes.
This is the original Apple Mac mouse, which I had, but it's a real mouse. It's an optical mouse built into a 3D case. I don't see that he's still selling these, Kevin. I guess you sold out of them.
He's not even on the Etsy store.
No. Oh, these are the coolest things ever.
Yep.
It looks just like my Mac, my 128K Mac mouse.
It's an optical mouse, right? And when you have this thing, I haven't built up this yet, but I do. He did send me like the mouse as well, but I had that up and running, and it's like, oh my God, I'm in junior high or high school again.
Yeah.
Knowing that I will never ever be able to afford this thing at this computer store, but I'm gonna stay here as long as I can before they kick me out.
It is now the official studio mouse. I'm plugging it in. We're throwing away this old wireless mouse. I will be using this mouse from now on. One button, but I'll manage. I'll survive somehow.
Exactly. Kevin,
thank you. He is still selling. Actually, this mouse is not on, so let me turn it on so I can click things. He is not selling the mouse, unfortunately, but I bet you if we talk nicely to him, he'll sell.
It's an Etsy product, which means that he'll make a run and then he'll stop making a run for a while. But if you keep like coming back, at some point you'll say, "Oh, I'm making 8 more, so please buy these immediately." I think he has these actually available in limited.
He does.
quantities.
He does. So
And
Etsy.com,
like
Noki1, Nokione.
Yeah.
The price has gone up a little bit, I noticed.
The price is up, but again, this is not, hey, I downloaded this 3D file from Thingiverse and I printed it off my Amazon.com printer. No, this is handcrafted. Yeah. This is as good as you could possibly hope for this to be. Worth every penny if you like this sort of stuff. Because again, it's just a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Thank you, Kevin. Merry Christmas to you too, sir. Christmas came early to the Twit East Side Studios. Thank you, Andy Naka. When are you going to be on GBH next?
A little late this week. I'm on Friday at 1:20 p.m., but you can stream me live or later at wgbhnews.org.
Very nice. Alex Lindsay, officehours.global. You guys just blowing me away. What'd you cook this weekend? Or did you cook?
We had a week off. It was the Thanksgiving weekend. We're taking this coming week. We're moving to Sundays for our cooking, so that I can go to the farmers market on Saturday with my daughter.
Oh,
so anyway, it's gotten to be surreal. We've started to have people show up in our after hours that I can't say on the air, but you just go, I can't believe this person's hanging out with us in after hours. And so it's really getting interesting. I'm designing on Mondays. I'm designing my new studio. I'm rebuilding the room here. And so we're just having this big conversation about what we put in it, and everyone gives me advice.
Office hours?
Like, you should change this over here, move this over there.
Officehours.global. And of course, you can hire Alex to build your studio at 090media.com. Renee Ritchie, youtube.com/Renee Ritchie. What are you working on?
I am working on a re-review of the iPhone 13 series and then the MacBook Pro. That should both be out this week.
Has your opinion changed?
No, I mean, there are things that I like and things that I don't like, and things that I thought I wouldn't like getting ProRes off of an iPhone without having something faster than a USB 2.0 connection is proving really, really painful. The battery life is astounding. So there's a lot of good and a lot of bad, and I want to make sure I cover both of them.
Did I make a mistake staying with my iPhone 12?
I mean, it depends on what's a priority for you. If the battery life is good enough, then it's fine. If you really want longer battery life or you want 120 hertz display, it depends what your pain points are, Leo.
Yeah. My pain point is writing $1,000 check is my pain point.
Well, you did. I mean, Lisa's got that phone. You can go and compare and see how compelling it is to you.
She deserves it. She's earned it. I am going to stick here with my Raspberry
Well, I'm just
Pi.
saying, like, you can compare and see if it's a compelling enough difference for you.
Yeah, I can, and I have. Renee Ritchie is at youtube.com/Renee Ritchie. We are MacBreak Weekly. The show is every Tuesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1900 now, 1900 UTC. You could tune in and watch us live at live.twit.tv. People who watch live often chat live in IRC at irc.twit.tv. There's also a great Discord channel for MacBreak Weekly viewers, but you must be a Club Twit member. Have I mentioned Club Twit lately? Club Twit is, I think, the best deal in podcasting. I don't care what Apple says. $7 a month gets you little Gatsby action there. Ad-free versions of all of our shows, plus access to the Discord, which is more than just a show chat. It's chat about every topic. Stacy does her book club there. We have a Untitled Linux show in there. And those shows, by the way, also make it to the Twit Plus feed. That's bonus content, things you wouldn't hear necessarily on the podcasts. If you're interested, and we sure appreciate our wonderful members, all you have to do is go to twit.tv/clubtwit. Some very exciting stuff coming up in the next couple of weeks and months on the Club Twit Discord and the feeds. So join now. Be a good Christmas gift for somebody. And if you just want one show ad-free, I should mention this. Apple does offer $2.99 per month per show subscription. So you can, if you're using Apple Podcasts, you can pay for one show and get ad-free versions of this show or any show you like. After the fact, everybody can download ad-supported versions of our shows from the website, twit.tv, in this case, twit.tv/MBW. If you like ads, you can get even more if you go to youtube.com/MacBreakWeekly. We put the show's video up there as well. You can also subscribe, of course, in your favorite podcast player. In fact, that's probably the best way to get it, so you get it automatically. And if you do that, please, by the way, please leave us a 5-star review, and that way we'll all benefit. More people can learn, and maybe someday Apple will even acknowledge us as a podcast. It's only been 15 years. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We'll see you next time. Now get back to work because break time is over. Bye-bye.
Hey, you don't have to wait till the weekend to get the tech news you need. Join Jason Howell and myself, Micah Sargent, for Tech News Weekly, where we talk to and about the people making and breaking the tech news.